Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Episode 290. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jim. Why is my neck ticking? So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you-know.
As long as you don't have the kill switch, I'm okay.
I've been clicking it all the whole episode we were recording. I'm like,
blow up.
Waller, she did me in on this one. This is a fun episode for us because we're talking about some books that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. First of all, we talk about a lot of Green Lantern. We talk about Green Lantern, The New Guardians, issue number 4. We also we've talked about Green Lantern Corps on the show before, but we do kind of a follow-up quick discussion on Green Lantern Corps number 4. And then we do an in-depth cover-to-cover of Green Lantern number 4, because I didn't realize that we talked about that one kind of quickly off of a voicemail. We didn't really formally do Green Lantern at all. So I wanted to make sure we got to those books. But then besides that, we also talk about Resurrection Man and Suicide Squad, issue number 4 of both of those. So we're continuing our exploration of the New 52. We're going to hit all of the books in the New 52. We're just kind of doing it gradually as we're going along, and we'll continue doing that. So we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pre-order the Batman Death by Design Deluxe Edition hardcover. This is an all-new original graphic novel from superstar writer-designer Chip Kidd and artist Dave Taylor. Gotham City is undergoing one of the most expansive construction booms in its history. The most prestigious architects from all across the globe have buildings in various phases of completion all over town. As chairman of the Gotham Landmarks Commission, Bruce Wayne has been a key part of this boom, which signals a golden age of architectural ingenuity for the city. And then the explosions begin. All manner of design-related malfunctions, faulty crane calculations, sturdy materials suddenly collapsing, software glitches, walkways giving away, and more cause casualties across the city. This bizarre string of seemingly random catastrophes threatens to bring down the whole construction industry, and fingers are pointed as Batman must somehow solve the problem and find whoever's behind it. This is a $24.99 hardcover, 45% off, only $13.74. This is one of many deals you're going to find on DCBService.com just for pre-ordering, so be sure to check them out for your pre-order needs. And remember, they are a Comixology digital partner. You can earn an additional 5% towards your DCB Service order just from doing your Comixology purchase through them. Over at InStockTrades.com. This month, they've got this end-of-the-world sale. It's actually 12 months of sales. Every month, they're going to be doing a different sale. This month features Image Comics at 45% off and Top Shelf at 48% off. But also, besides that, they have a deal of the week right now. The Annotated Sandman Volume 1 hardcover. It's 50% off, only $24.99. So be sure to be checking out InStockTrades.com each week for their deals, but also every month to see what new deal they're going to have coming in. And I want to thank InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Do you realize I've never called you James at all, except when we do that?
Yes.
I've known you how many years? It's always Jim. I've never called you James. Why am I calling you James with that? And it's not going to change because I'm in a habit of it now. But where did that come from? Must have been you.
It fits. It just fits the name. That's a James moment. That's not a Jim moment. That's a James moment. You know, when I'm at work, I got half the people at work call me James, half call me Jim. And they always ask me what I prefer, and I say just whatever you're comfortable with, I'm cool with. It's, you know, do you see me as a James? Do you see me as a Jim? And there's times when I'm a complete idiot, and you call me a complete idiot because that fits as well.
Complete idiot? What kind of a podcast are we? Oh, no. Maybe I'll edit that in. Why is he calling him a complete idiot now? But I'll take out the explanation. Boy, that Sean's cruel. He just called him idiot now all the time. But then you'll be all peppy and happy. And you won't know because you don't listen back to the show like I have to. There's been like 10 episodes now where Sean's calling you a complete idiot, and then you tell him what kind of a podcast you are. And you like it. Let's talk some comics. Jim, our first review this episode is going to be of Green Lantern: The New Guardians, Issue 4. Tony Bedard is the writer, Tyler Kirkham is the penciler, Bat is the inker, Nei Ruffino is the colorist, Dave Sharp letterer, cover by Kirkham, Bat, and Rod Reese. Sean Makowitz is the associate editor, and Pat McCallum is the editor, and apologies in advance for any name butchery. Now, this has been an interesting book for me, because when it launched, I think because of the fact that it was such a new direction, so to speak, I was like, how is this book going to connect in with what's currently going on with the Green Lantern universe? Or I needed a few issues to kind of get a feel for the direction of it. It wasn't that I don't want to make it sound like I didn't like the book. It was, Green Lantern, with what was going on with Hal and Sinestro, started out with a bang. Huge events that were happening right back in the beginning of it. Green Lantern Corps has this huge mega event that was happening there. I've got to say, with issue 4 of this book, and this is leading to a major compliment for this book, I am so thrilled with the storytelling method of this series because I really like that it was different than the other 2 books I just mentioned, because it's very satisfying to hit issue 4. It feels very different and unique to the Green Lantern universe. Yet this is really the issue for me. We're like, oh, this is so totally interconnected. I really love how this is telling, what's going on in the Green Lantern universe from a very different angle. I love that Kyle has a very unique direction in this now. This was the issue where I really fell in love with this book. I've been enjoying it since issue 1. And I do think my satisfaction with issue 4 comes from the build. I am finding that there's a number of New 52 books where I'm feeling this way. It seems to be issue 4 that I'm really clicking on certain titles. And this is one of those books that I'm glad we waited to talk about it, because I really now am very into the New Guardians. And this, I got to be honest with you, this is right up there now with the other 2 Green Lantern books, where if you'd asked me like 2 months ago, I wouldn't have been saying the same thing. I don't know if you feel the same way I do, but this was really the issue for me where I'm like, oh my gosh, this creative team just hit it out of the park.
See, I have a little bit different reaction than you did.
Okay.
I was more into this book earlier than you. After the first issue had me going, By the second one, I was like, oh, this is some cool stuff going on with Kyle. And I was digging that. I kind of saw it as a Kyle story. Then as every issue is folding out, it's spreading out more to the other cores, and this is something I wanted to see. I wanted to see a multiple core title, and I was getting it right from the start. I was like, okay, and I just saw this whole thing as a building. I was excited, anticipating. I was thinking off the page, basically pretty much from issue 1, maybe a little bit into 2. I was already starting to think where this would go, and I love the fact that I thought this would go one place, and it's going someplace else, and I was surprised by it. And there was still a couple swerves, still a couple moments that I didn't see coming. And I was kind of happy that even though I was already thinking ahead, it went a different direction, and I was happy with the different direction that it went.
Oh, and I want to clarify, I'm rethinking the first 3 issues because of what happened with this one. I mean, this was the issue where I agree with you. It went in a very different direction than I expected, and I really am finding that very satisfying, and it's made me really appreciate what was going on in issue 1, 2, and 3 all the more. So you're right, we were very much in a different place with this book, but now I'm complete 180. I'm totally into this title. I think it's fantastic. I'm really like, this is drool worthy. The art was always very satisfying for me. The story was always good. I don't want to say this was never a book that was like on the chopping block, or I don't mean it that way. It just, compared to the other 2, if you asked me how are you feeling about Green Lantern right now, I was all about Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps. I got to be honest with you, in many ways, when I hit issue 4 of this, I'm all about New Guardians. I mean, this is really satisfying. Very good issue. I'm really excited to talk about this one in particular. You know what? Yeah. The Ganthet stuff, I'm glad it's paying off here because I read all that stuff with Kyle. and Ganthet when Kyle was first introduced. And to see that here and to see that emotional, I like the way that they're really showing that Kyle was chosen here. I like that new re-explanation of it, because before, the way that Kyle's origin was originally told, it seemed more like an accident that he became Green Lantern. This new direction of he was like like they needed to choose somebody else and he was chosen for that role. I'm glad it steps up Kyle, because I feel that Kyle is every bit as important as John and Hal, and in many ways there were great stories, and I'm not taking Guy out of that equation, but Guy always had like kind of a different spot for me than those two. But in many ways, Kyle did something that the others didn't have to. He took a core that didn't exist and reformed it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he's got a very important role in a rich history with the Green Lanterns, and I'm really glad to see him spotlighted in this so much. And that Ganthet stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, I want to see, and it's funny because this issue really had me anticipating and wanting to see when Ganthet kind of turns it back, when Ganthet does become Ganthet again, because it's going to happen eventually. I don't know how soon it's going to be, but somewhere down the line, the Guardians are going to expect Ganthet to be, their little mindless, emotionless guardian and do what he's supposed to do, and he's going to turn around and say, "Hey, pound salt, buddy," and we're going to get Ganthet back. So that's this issue especially was that build up for the future fight that's going to be coming, because we're seeing here that Guardians can throw down pretty well against other Guardians, and once Ganthet gets his mind back, once Ganthet becomes Ganthet again, he's going to throw down with the Guardians, and we're going to see a Guardian war, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Here's my problem when it comes to the Guardians: are they all like? Is something manipulating them? What is going on with the Guardians? Like this whole thing, they lobotomized Ganthet. I mean, realistically, they went into his mind and really altered him. Is this something that you think that, are they themselves, or this is just they've become so paranoid or delusional or so stuck in their ways that they become out of touch to the point that they would go to these links? Or is there something more at work here? What do you think? Because I don't know. I'm really asking the question genuinely from the standpoint of that's where my head's at right now. I'm asking these questions. I don't have an answer. Do you? Are you thinking a certain way on this?
Well, I kind of think they're just being jerks. I think they're just we're finally really seeing that these guys are a bunch of just. You get it's that whole power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a combination of they got their butts handed to them during Blackest Night and by Scar and everything. So now they're just turning it the other way. They're going to the extreme. It's extreme emotional, extreme non-emotional, any type of the extreme range always leads to problems. You got to be, that's why an even-keeled, even-tempered person can be a little bit better off in, a leadership position. And, and it could, if they were to say that they were being manipulated by something, I wouldn't have an issue with that. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. But I honestly think they're just idiots. And that's part of my enjoyment of this book, because I'm seeing people go against them. And I'm hoping that this is going to lead to something coming down the line in the Green Lantern book, in the Green Lantern Corps book, maybe even in Red Lantern, just showing them someone standing to the Guardians and a change in Oa, a change in how things happen because of what we're seeing here.
Well, I think it's going to be this book, at least the way the setup's playing in
definitely. I'm leaning towards this is the book we're going to see a change happen. This is the book where there's going to be something, it's times are changing for the Guardians and we're going to see it. I'm thinking it's going to be in this book, but it can happen in any of the Green books.
Yeah. I love how you basically summed it up as they're a football team that needs a new coach.
Bingo.
They got poor sportsmanship. Although I think, lobotomizing your friend can be summed up as a little bit more than poor sportsmanship. You know what? We just got a little carried away. We got to remember to shake after the big game. Now, Larfleeze coming into all this. I love when they do swerves on this, and they'll pull in a character like Larfleeze and make it seem like, this was all about Larfleeze trying to take over, Larfleeze trying to win, Larfleeze trying to control all the rings and all that stuff. And it turned out to be something deeper. And Sade was involved, which I didn't know what role Sade, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing Sade's name right, Larfleeze's guardian would be playing in all this. I love that things aren't as simple in that relationship as you would think. There would come a point in time, like how much servitude, when you're a guardian, how much servitude when you're being treated that way can you put up with? You know, I mean, I thought it was noble that Sade did that, made that sacrifice, and made that agreement in order to get Larfleeze's support. But it didn't turn out the way, I don't think Sade expected it to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
I think he expected, like, being the guardian of that particular lantern would mean some form of respect, kind of like what was going on when they decided to become the guardians of the blue lanterns. This went in a horribly wrong direction, especially when you're being used as a magic carpet.
I tell you, we talked a little bit earlier about artwork.
Yes.
Larfleeze, this opening page, oh my God, he looks outstanding. He's no longer a Muppet to me. He is something fierce. This was just a great rendering of him with the flame kind of styling, for across his head. Just the nastiness in his face. This is a really cool, tough Larfleeze. I'm digging this look. What
is your exposure to Tyler Kirkham's art? Has it just been through his Green Lantern work?
Yeah.
Okay. Because for me, I'm a big fan of Top Cows. I like Witchblade and the Darkness and all that stuff because it's kind of in that supernatural Buffy kind of wheelhouse and stuff like that. It's why that, when DC started all these supernatural books up again, I was really thrilled because I really felt like we were getting that kind of vibe without it being a clone of those books, if it makes sense. Because I'm into that kind of stuff. I like that comics can go in that direction. And that's where I've gotten his artwork before. And I really, when he was coming over to DC, I was really excited. I like seeing him on Green Lantern. It's just a different kind of look for him. But yet there's, some signature style from Tyler Kirkham that I really enjoy. I don't know. I'm really liking him on this book. And that's been consistent since issue 1. But I'm with you. This Larfleeze stuff, I just loved. I don't know whose idea. I don't know if that was his idea or whatever. Writing it like that, or if it was a creative team choice. Whoever, that was brilliant.
Yes.
Because it added to me, like, the rage you see from Sade when, like, Sade's lashing out against the other Guardians. It added to this sense, Sade's already going to be upset because of what happened to Ganthet. Feeling that what had happened emotionally over long distances would be something that would already bring those emotions to front. And for a Guardian to feel those emotions, especially when the Guardians try so hard to hide them. But this is the one Guardian who, when Ganthet and her went over, they gave in to their emotions. They started to have a relationship of sorts, whatever that looks like for Guardians. And, they were the two that were really in touch with the other Lanterns, I think, in a way that the rest of the Guardians didn't get. I think it honestly is one of the things that led to lobotomizing Ganthet. I think the rest of the Guardians have been like, they were like chalking up their puke cues, saying, "Hey, it's time. We're going to get a hole-in-one with this boy." And I do think that this is something that was coming. But I loved the visual in that double page of Sade lashing out. There was something so creepy about that because you see that rage, you see what Larfleeze is doing, you see the laughter of Glom. Larfleeze, at certain points of time, he becomes cartoony and clowny and stuff like that. And I like that. I like that the character can have those immature, kid-like, childlike moments. But then there's something so natural about the creep factor that you get in a segment like this. Larfleeze in this segment, who is like endearing and like Muppet-like you were talking about earlier, I think that fits him at certain points in time. But right here, this is no Muppet. I agree with you 110%. I loved the artwork. I loved that the drawing of Larfleeze, we didn't lose the character that we had before. He's still that same guy with that same feel. Oh, but it's funny how you do a little art twist on him, and that this guy is downright like, ugh. Yeah. There's a creepy uncle factor to him right now that I think is very fitting for the sequence.
Yeah, and I love the rage just on Sade's face, on Larfleeze's face. You see the pain in the other Guardians. This was just some great emotional reactions that you get from this artwork. That it's one of those things, one of the reasons I like going through and reading through a second time without reading the words and just looking at the pictures and just, studying and going through and looking at his different constructs, what they're doing. And just, there's so much activity going on this page that, this is like a 2-3 read through just looking at the artwork, and you really enjoy and appreciate it. It's, green for me, a green title has to pop in the color. And, this book just, bam, explodes off the page. And I was really just, thrilled, excited. I was laughing. I was enjoying it. It was a true, real, just an enjoyment of the book. And it's something that I really, really needed to see, and I really enjoy seeing. And it's, this is one of those. For me, it's funny because I try to pick what my favorite, we talked about what's your favorite Bat book. Well, whatever one we're reading, and I have that same problem with the Green Lantern books where it's hard for me to pick one specific one specific book. And, I tell you, Guardians is one of my, top of the stack, of the green books. It's usually I'm comparing a book to it, saying, no, this one, okay, no, this one. This is one that's been consistently at the top of the game. And that's just, it was a really cool action plus story moments going on. This is kind of a wow.
In the previous months, I would clearly say it was either a Green Lantern or Green Lantern Corps that were my winner that month as far as the 3 green books. I have no hesitation going out on a limb and saying with issue 4 on the issue 4 releases of all 3 of the green books, this is my issue. This is my standout one. This was my number 1 of the green books that month. Because I really felt that everything just kind of came together for me. You were talking about the emotional resonance you get off of Larfleeze and Sade. I also want to mention that page where you've got Orange Lanterns sniff out the little blue meddlers. I love that the constructs have that. There's this whole nice flow on that page of because you got this issue where you got Larfleeze and Sade going toe to toe with the Guardians, and this leads to that sequence with Kyle, who I love that Kyle still feels drained and diminished because not just because he got beat down by the Guardians, but because of what happened with him in the rings, which took a ton out of him too. So he's beat up on multiple levels. And I love that there's that visual with him that he really looks like he's drained on huge levels. But that whole leading to then this really cool segment where, but my new Guardians will pitch in it. And who would I release first? If I'm going in flying with all that rage, yes, I'm doing the same thing with Bleeze. That was great.
Oh, God, yeah. She's just hardcore attack, violence. This is, you want to throw her in the mix immediately, get her throwing down. I would then reach for Arkillo next just because he fights, he enjoys the fight, he's good at combat, he's good at killing. Those are 2, you unleash your dogs first, you unleash your heavy hitters, you unleash the rage, especially because he just invaded their home turf. The inner sanctuary of the Guardians, he's just invaded. He needs to hit them as fast and as hard as possible. Those are the 2 who are going to hit first and then go, hey, is this the right idea later?
Knock. At least I think that was the right response. It was something that I really enjoyed in this was seeing Larfleeze kind of take charge. Because like we mentioned, with seeing him kind of in that cartoony segments that we've seen him with before, I've always enjoyed it. I want to clarify that. I've always enjoyed him in his previous appearances. I loved his Christmas special. I loved all of his appearances previously. I love seeing this different side to him that we have not seen before. You still see things like when, was it Glom or whatever?
Yeah.
Has got the popcorn out and the hat, watching everything that Larfleeze is doing, cheering him on and all that. But it is definitely a confidence to Larfleeze, a bravery to Larfleeze that I don't know that I remember standing out as much as we see it in this issue. And that was something that I really, because usually the only time we saw Larfleeze really this kind of possessed was when he wanted something, and there's more to it in this. Mm-hmm. And that was something that it was nice to see with this particular character.
It's more of a thinking Larfleeze. It seems like he actually has a strategy behind his action, not just running in going, mine, mine. There's something else going on upstairs. And that's another thing I enjoyed reading from this title was the fact that, okay, Larfleeze isn't just mindless to his ring. He's not just controlled by, an overwhelming urge to get stuff. He can think, plan, and actually interact with his universe.
Mm-hmm. At least I've got my faithful little slave here to cover my flank. Do not grow too accustomed to it, you revolting. What? Nothing. That was one of my favorite segments, too, because we're getting to see right now that there's more to meets the eye with the relationship with Sade and Larfleeze, and there is going to come a reckoning from all that. I want to see what that's like. And I love that she's still got independent thought, especially with going over to talk to Kyle to try and explain what's going on for the rings and saying that there's more going on here than you realize. This is something that we can't discuss here. Do not be talked into this relationship with the Guardians. They're trying to trick you. I like this whole sense of we've got to regroup. You've got to know the whole story. There's things you don't know. Information anytime you're doing something. See, you've got to remember these Guardians are intelligent. They are the Guardians of the universe. Look at all the amazing things that they've done. While our Guardians proper are very misguided, especially with what they did to Ganthet, you're dealing with a power level and a longevity of life that gives them this immense intelligence. So having Sade in your corner and listening to the counsel of Sade and finding out what's going on would be something that would be huge. And I really love the way that this is one of those issues where I'm like, wow, there are so many things in this issue that wouldn't have meant anything if it hadn't been for the previous 3 issues. But I found that I was so satisfied with all the things I was thinking in this issue, all the things I was thinking off the page, the depth of the character development and all this, because they're doing a whole lot here in a lot of time. I really loved the focus on our friend St. Walker.
Yeah.
And how we got to learn a little bit more about what he brings to the table besides just charging up Kyle, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it was something that I found very satisfying in this one.
Yeah, it's funny because with that don't grow too accustomed to it. Whereas Sade's like you can see she's getting ready to rebel. Yeah. For me, I was thinking because this is one of the scenes that got me thinking off page as she made her initial agreement to allow to get Larfleeze in the battle for Blackest Night, and all to get all the colors together so they can win the day and save the day. What happens now? What keeps her locked in and honor, locked in? Is it honor bound? Is it, does she have to, or it'll break something? Is there some way? And I started thinking, how can she get out of being the Guardian? How can she get out of this? And I was glad to see that she's also thinking this. She's also planning this. She's also making sure that there's not going to be. This isn't going to be a permanent situation for her.
Well, it was interesting that St. Walker was trying to invite Ganthet to come back as a Guardian to the Blue Lanterns. Mm-hmm. I wonder how much freedom of choice once a Guardian becomes a Guardian do they have? I don't know. Like these guys are all Guardians of the Green. If you choose to become a Guardian of another corps and another color, what is your... do you change emotions? Is Sade being influenced by the emotion of what's going on with Larfleeze? Is there this kind of avarice and greed kind of thing going on? I don't know. It's what is that doing to Sade? You follow me on that?
God. Oh, yeah, and that's kind of the stuff I was thinking. Is there like a commitment that it's like the brand? You're in there, you're in for life. Blood in, blood out. You don't get out, you don't make the change unless something significant happens. Because you think when Ganthet and Sade first went over to the Blue, there was this whole thing with them separating from the Guardians. Then he became a Green Lantern. Then they pulled him back in and made him a Guardian again. It's like it's a supernatural type of superpower level, but must be in place for the change.
Think about the way they carried themselves when they were the Guardians of the Blue, though.
Yeah.
There was kind of an all will be well attitude from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way they carry. I mean, this Sade is not the same Sade that was the Guardian of the Blue.
And that could be the whole thing. She could maybe be planning to make a power play to be the only Orange Lantern, to get the Lantern away from Larfleeze. Mm-hmm. This whole thing could be, her plan to, knock Larfleeze down and take over the Orange. She could be fully corrupted by it and fully corrupted by the greed and the avarice, which it'd be funny because once she started doing that, Larfleeze may try to release her. Because he's like, hey, there's only going to be me. You were fun for now. Get rid of you. Release her, and then we'll get her, the real Sade back.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know that it's as. I guess I don't think that Sade's as corrupted as that. Maybe trying to go for the Orange Lantern. Although I wouldn't have an issue if it was for a lot of the reasons you set it up. Mm-hmm. I was taking it as more subtle than that. Like Sade still has the same mental faculties and the same sense of control there, but that there would be an emotional influence to how she behaves and how she's reacting, and that would influence some of that rage we're seeing from her in the way that she's carrying herself. Same person, but influenced by the color choice. Just like, she was the same Guardian that she was when she was a Green Lantern Guardian, when she became a Blue Lantern Guardian, but there was more of a peaceful outlook to everything. So I guess I don't know if embracing the particular color core or being a part of that particular color core, while with the Guardians, I think that they have more of an ability to overcome that particular quote-unquote color. It still would have a emotional influence and affect some of the ways that she carries herself and things. I don't know. I don't know if it's more subtle, like I'm thinking, or if it's more in your face, like you're thinking, where there's this deep rooted plan to completely usurp Larfleeze. And I don't know that I would have an issue either way. It's fun to speculate. I mean, I'm really enjoying the fact that I feel like that's one small, tiny thing out of this issue that I was really thinking a lot about, and a great example of why this issue was the one for me where I'm like, wow, they really hit this one out of the park. I really found, I reread this multiple times, and really that was what influenced me saying, hey, this is the time I really want to talk about this book, because I knew we had to get to this book, and this was the issue where I was like, oh, wow, this really stood out for me as just being a really special issue on dialogue, art, everything that was going on with it. Everything just kind of seemed to come together on this one. I don't know. It was just kind of where I was at.
Yeah, and I tell you, just talk about coming together. The page where Ganthet's trying to make the play to Kyle to stay with the Green, mm-hmm. to stay with him, where he's talking about all the different cores, how our Yellow Lantern Arkilla is a bloodthirsty animal, Star Sapphire Fatality is a slave to her passion, and just how the multiple panels on that page, but the one that has Ganthet just really is showing right around the eyes, and you look into the eyes and you kind of you see a combination of the lifelessness, but it's not, dead eyes. There is still something there, but it's just that commitment, just that rage, it's that anger, it's that whatever, the whatnot
Stern.
Behind what. Yeah.
No, see, I really, in that one, I don't know that I see so much rage as much. I mean, I think more, trying to get. I agree with you if you're talking about the part where he's like, "Stop, Kyle, hear me out."
Yeah.
It's more of this urgency to get his attention there. But then when he's talking to him, there's a stern calm to him that it's cold, it's calculating, but then there's also, this is the part where he's making his big play. And he's digging right into areas where he knows, this is clear that he has the memories of Ganthet, because he knows that Kyle, at this point, always felt like when Hal came back that, he somehow was diminished. Mm-hmm. He wasn't chosen like Hal was, things like that. This part, the seed of greatness burns within you. I always knew it did. Remain here and let us study what has happened to you. Believe in me once more, and you may yet return to duty with your honor intact. He's basically saying, hey, Kyle, I'm giving you a pass right here. This is your chance to stop all this, come back to the fold, and be one of our boys again. Do this now. Let us study this. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm at the point I wouldn't make that deal. I don't trust him. Do you?
Oh God, no. Yeah, I think Kyle made definitely the right choice here by leaving and going with them. And it's funny, as you were talking, the best thing that I can describe with Ganthet is it's the silent storm.
Yes.
It's that, that power, that brooding, but it's not hitting you yet. And you could see it in his eyes, and you could see it through those panels. And that was something that really struck me art-wise, because I got that from the story. I got that from his words. I got how he was trying to pull Kyle back. He was trying to possibly manipulate Kyle. Who knows where his end game was going. But you saw that, I kind of felt that.
He tried to hit him below the belt. Yeah. I mean, and it really was, manipulating is 110% what was going on there. He was trying to really dig emotionally in there and say, hey, you can be the Lantern I always knew you were going to be.
Yeah.
I believed in you. I'm the one that, really kind of playing off that relationship and making it seem like, hey, you were my boy. This is it. And there's an intimidation there that was going. There was a whole bunch of emotion in that stern glance that I thought was just something, I don't know. That was cool. Sade pleading at that moment after Ganthet shot her down. I really loved how that was. He will never be our Ganthet again. And talk about another emotional plea there. But I think Sade won out there at that moment, our Ganthet. Remember what this was like. I think that was something that was, I loved seeing St. Walker over there with being the one to console her, kind of helping her there. Because of his intention to try and bring Ganthet back in the fold, this was the other guardian. This was the other relationship that St. Walker would have. I like attention to detail like that. You could have just had Sade on the ground pleading, and you could have had Kyle over there and Ganthet over there and done the same scene, and it would have been fine. It would have had the same thing. For me, the little tiny detail of having St. Walker there told a little bit more of St. Walker's story in that visual. I don't know, it was something that I appreciate that, because I think, you've only got so many pages in these comics to try and focus and spotlight on as many characters as possible. I thought that was a tiny little background moment with St. Walker that tells a lot of story. And I like that. I'm into that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Amen. Now, the teleporting him back to the Orange World, that, I tell you, that play-out sequencing, that, again, was just another wonderful moment. Multiple panels just flow through 2 pages, and I loved, again, how it played out. Can some of the characters like, yeah.
Jim, I hate to interrupt you. We can't go to that yet, because you got to talk about when Kyle flashed out. You've been like a father to me, but from now on, I forge my own future. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't want to go to that yet, because what was happening with Kyle's ring is pivotal there in that moment. All those colors coming out of his ring at one time has shown us that in this moment, the change that's gone on is very deep into his ring. That shattering, those rings didn't vanish. They're a part of him. They're a part of the way he operates now. Every single color spectrum was coming out of his ring at that moment when he lashed out there. We now are in a position with Kyle where all bets are off. How does Kyle recharge that? And what does that mean for him power-wise? What can Kyle do now because of that? That's something they're leading this retreat segment. I'm sorry, I apologize for cutting you off on there. I think that's something pivotal as we move forward. That was something that also grabbed me. And I'm sorry, please carry on with what you were going with.
Actually, that's a quick, really good comments on that. And one of the things with that, I'm wondering now if he's going back to the way he was when he was Ion, where he doesn't need the ring to recharge. He doesn't need anything like that, because we saw immediately before St. Walker was recharging him, but that was really kind of before he accessed this power level, before he actually was able to pull out. I'm wondering if Kyle is now a living battery.
Well, it's funny when St. Walker recharged him and Kyle flew into battle for the first time, and Ganthet comes in there. It's all green. It was only when he lashed out at Ganthet that we see that unleashing of all this color spectrum. So I don't know if Kyle could put a word to it yet, if Kyle realizes what he did yet. You know what I mean?
I don't think he does, because the very next panel, he's back to then just green when he's gathering everybody up to teleport out of there. And even the later panels, he's just green. There's not a color spectrum.
And I'm sorry, that's why I had to stop you there, just because I think that's something, to me, was a pivotal moment in this issue where I was like, oh my gosh, is that cool? On top of everything else that I think has just been fantastic in this issue, when that particular panel hit, I'm like, this is a huge reveal that it's a mystery we know nothing about. And I love that. I love that we don't know right now. Because it's one of many gripping things in this issue that's taken a book that I've been enjoying and made me go, oh my gosh, I've been so underselling this book in my mind as I've been reading it. It changed the first 3 issues for me. I went back after reading issue 4, and because I really wanted to, I went back. I'm like, wait a minute, what have I been reading? I went back and reread the first 3 issues. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I really, the satisfaction I have for this title now is really pivot. This issue was the one that just kind of made me wake up and smell the coffee on what's going on here. And it is moments like that where I'm like, wow, what a terrific build. And I actually like that. I really like that some of these titles aren't afraid to do a gradual build to things. Because, that's a risk. Because, nowadays with comics, you've got like sometimes one or two issues to really pull somebody in. And I really love that there's, this great build to crescendos and certain things. I think you can get away with that in a Green Lantern book. But this book in particular, woof. So, Jim, you were talking about the retreat.
Yeah.
So go for it.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's one of those tactical retreats that you need to do sometimes. You can't always just keep fighting on. Sometimes you gotta, it's, he who runs away lives to fight another day. And it's great to see certain, members, of this group would obviously recognize that, and others not so much. Belize's reaction, Larflee's action was wonderful. Because first he wants to go kill the Indigo Lantern because he forced Arkillo to retreat. And then when Saint Walker jumps in the path, he's like, no, he saved us. Well, who will save you from Arkillo? I love that moments of him just, full on, throwing down, not even, stopping to say, hey, that was a really smart move on your part. No, that's not Arkillo. That's not his style. That's not his honor, his code of honor. And that really plays out in the next couple panels where we see St. Walker heal Arkillo. It wasn't just about violence. It wasn't just about bloodshed. It was about a matter of honor. He had been shamed, and he had to wear his badge of his shame, by having his tongue ripped out. And I love just seeing how all this played out, going from hardened rage that you think, okay, Arkillo's kind of one-faced. Yeah, he's a bad guy. Okay, he's violent. But there is a code of honor. There's a code of conduct to him, and he has to stick to that code, and I love seeing that play out in these panels.
One of the things I liked is I knew, for some reason I felt like I knew that the ring could give you what you wanted, but I had no idea it could do this kind of healing thing that it did on the level that it did. And I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot, I should have known that already. Do you remember it being able to do this?
Yeah, it healed Ganthet.
Oh, that's right. Duh.
And it was funny because I didn't even remember that until seeing this sequence. I never once thought that, Sane Walker's going to heal Arkillo. I was thinking, okay, they're going to use the ring to communicate, and that's going to be how they're going to go. Occasionally, the grunts and sounds. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. And I was looking forward to it. And then as soon as this started playing out, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, he healed Ganthet, regrew the whole hand. And he did it by showing him the image of Said. Exact same thing, where it's the ring shows you what your heart needs, what you need for the healing. And I love seeing how this played out, that it was Sinestro. And it was Sinestro telling me, hey, you've worn your badge of honor enough. Your dishonor. You no longer have to wear that. That was a really cool, again, a cool moment showing his code, showing that there's more to this, really tough character than just the grunts and the groans and the killing.
One of the things that I really liked about it was, first of all, I totally forgot about the Ganthet thing, so I'm glad you brought that up. Because the second you said it, I'm like, oh, yeah, dummy. But the one sequence that I want to talk about is with Bleeze. Now, I'm still going to say that I'm taking, this is the Bleeze that's gone through what Atrocitus has been doing in Red Lanterns. Like, the restoring the sanity, I think what would happen there is Bleeze is afraid that would take away the power that she has now in the Red Lanterns. How are you reading that, though?
See, first time read through, I took it that this was before the stuff that happened, with the Red Lantern, and we're going to get her to come. She's gone for now. She's going to come back after the Red Lantern stuff. Mm-hmm. But then I started thinking, well, what if all that Red Lantern stuff has already happened? And this is just her kind of, either playing the game, let them think I am this mindless beast so they don't know what I'm actually capable of. And I think that's why, that's one, I was thinking maybe that's why she took off. Because if, Sane Walker gets in her head, he'll know the truth. And she's got to keep her cover going.
Yeah. I don't know.
So I'm over those two camps right now, and that's one of those two, and probably it's going to be a third one that I didn't see coming, but I'm thinking it's going to be one of those two options, and I'm leaning towards the second one. I'm leaning towards that Bleeze already has her mind back, and she's just more or less playing them. You don't want to throw out all your cards on the table, especially when you're dealing with these different cores that you don't completely trust. So she's just going to let them play them. Hey, you think I'm a mindless monster? Cool. That works great for me. I'm going to see what happens.
After my master successfully resisted, it's got to be like scratching nails on a chalkboard for Sade to say those words. But I loved how this story played out, that this was something that Larfleeze was going through the same thing that we've seen experienced in the previous issues, with these rings being pulled away, and, you know, that reveal to this kind of other power source that's taking these things away. I guess, you know, did you take it like the ships that were being pulled in? Was this entity, this Ori that they show in the end of the issue, is this pulling in, you know, potential technology and power sources from a variety of different worlds and universes and things like that? How did you take that? What's going on with these ships? Because they're drawn by the Orrery, right?
Yeah, that's they're getting pulled into. It's like a kind of a black hole, you know, type of gravitational pull, force energy pulling it in. I kind of took it as the Borg, where they're taking their technology and assimilating it and using it for their own purposes. And as they're doing it, that's how they're growing. They're pulling in different civilizations, cultures, technology, the whole gambit, you know, and using that and building themselves, making themselves stronger. And I wonder where this is going to play out when it comes to the rings, when it comes to the power levels. Is this something that even more powerful than the Guardians? Is this where everything's going to go? This was a really cool ending segment because it opens the door for the future stories, but it also just gets you thinking, is there something more powerful than the Guardians of the Universe? What is this? Is this a doorway to another universe? Is this within the universe? There's so many questions that come off of this. Plus, we still have the interactions of the different team members in this book that are always, you know, questionable, up in the air. So this was a great ending and a really beautiful 2-page spread.
I guess my question is, too, how much do the Guardians know? And are these more secrets that the Guardians are keeping? You know, I don't know. I'm very curious to see what's going on here. Like, you know, we're seeing in Green Lantern Corps right now that big secret that's going on. I mean, we might as well talk about that a little bit, with the fact that this ninja group that's been this willpower ninja group that's been attacking the Corps in that used to be the keepers of the batteries. They didn't just, I love that. They didn't just go to like nowhere land, la la land. They were actually kept by keepers. What happens when you take that purpose away from those keepers, though? They come to take it back.
Yeah, they're not happy campers. They definitely they feel wronged and they feel slighted, and they're like, okay, fine, you want to throw down, we'll throw down. Well, and it was a great explanation why they were such masters of willpower. Mm-hmm. You know, they're beyond the Lanterns, you know, knowledge and acceptance, because it's generational upon generations of it's their pure existence was the ring, was the lantern, was the willpower. So the fact that, you know, just you have that on top of it, plus add to it a little determination for, you know, some payback, you got yourself a really tough person to fight. And it made sense. It fit why they were throwing down and why they were killing lanterns so easily, why they were actually able to hold their own against these guys. And I love that.
Well, here's the question I have with that particular one, seeing as you're doing kind of this casual chat about that. What happens, like, when that power source is being sent over so regularly? You would figure there was always lanterns there, right? Because not every lantern... The lanterns were there as long as the lantern didn't pull it out for charging, right?
Right.
So that place was always populated by power batteries. When all of those are yanked... Like, what kind of positive place was that before that, and what kind of negative impact did that have after that? Is there a reason why they're attacking? What did it do to their world? Think about what we know that power source can do, what it's capable of. What happens when you yank it out of a place? We don't know that. We don't know what it was like before. You know, was that place a utopia? Were they doing amazing things with that power source? And when that was yanked away, their whole world was decimated because of it. You know, their existence was completely changed. I mean, it'd be like taking away, you know, electricity. You know what I mean? From us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, things were, you know, conveniences that we're used to here. You know, imagine what that would be like not when it's electricity, when it's something beyond that, like what we know these power batteries can provide. Because you would figure anything created by those power batteries in that world, there'd be no reason for it ever to be gone, right? Buildings, castles, constructs, all those things would constantly be in existence, right?
It should be, and I was thinking it would be just that peaceful utopia, because you look at the ninjas, what they're taking from the different worlds. They're taking these different, the true life essence of the planet and bringing it back to their own. So they're trying to rebuild their society to this once great existence, and by having that is, they're trying to get back to where they were. Plus, they're also probably trying to get themselves ready so they can take it back from the Guardians. So it's a two front battle they're fighting. One, they want to restore their world. Two, they want vengeance. And I think it's they're making them their villains. They're wrong, but you kind of understand what they're going through. You do in a way feel sympathetic towards them. And those are some of the best villains that you have out there. When you have a villain that you can say, yes, what they're doing is wrong, but I kind of understand why they're doing it.
And they were wronged.
Yeah, big time.
So I don't know. That's an interesting story. I just wanted to make sure we made mention of it because we haven't been able to. Obviously, we touched on that book already, but I wanted to go back to make mention of it real quick because I think it's a very cool title. I don't know. Green Lantern's really great right now. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about the regular Green Lantern book.
And let's continue on with the Green World as we go to Green Lantern number 4. The writer is Jeff Johns, pencils by Doug Mahnke, inks by Christian Alma and Keith Champagne, colors by Alex Sinclair, letterer Sal Cipriano, covers by Mahnke, Champagne with Barron, the variant cover by Francis Manipul. The assistant editor is Darren Shan with editor Brian Cunningham.
I am loving the Green Lantern title right now. It's funny how, I'm a big Hal fan, and I'm loving how, kind of being a second fiddle to Sinestro is making Hal kind of more reflect on other life options. If he's not going to be Green Lantern, or, if Sinestro really is the guy, looking back at his own life and other decisions and saying, geez, this is making me look at the life that could have been. Could that life still be, as we go forward? And Carol being the pivotal point in this. It's one of the things that I'm really looking for in the DC universe is like a great romance. Because why was I so worried about the ending of Superman and Lois's marriage? I like segments like what we're getting here with Hal and Carol. These great long loves, these, moments where you want to see these two together. I'm going to be curious to see what this exploration winds up looking like. What role is Carol going to play in all this? Is she going to accept Hal? And what does that mean for Hal, if they start building a relationship together? Because they have to play off this. You don't set this kind of thing up and not try to, somehow play off it. But what does it mean when there's a reason for Hal to don the ring again? Because that inevitably is going to happen, where Hal is going to become a Green Lantern again. I think a lot of what's going on with the Guardians and that sequence is leading to the cataclysmic pivotal events that are going to need Hal Jordan to be once again a Green Lantern. That's where we're going to see that man really step up and, take the bat, and be the one to be again, the leader of the Green Lanterns, leading the rally and all that stuff. Yeah, at least I think that's what it's leading to. But what's pivotal and more interesting to me right now is getting a chance to see him think about this type of life. And you've been off the planet for so long. You're beyond out of touch with everyday life and people. And then these are multiple segments right here. No, Hal, you're right. God, I don't know why I'm crying this time. It never works between us because this isn't what you really want. Yet it is. It is what he wants. You're trapped between two worlds when you are one of these heroes. The world of your responsibility as a Green Lantern, and the world, like the real world that we all live in, stability, a home, that person to come home to, that person to build a life with and a meaningful relationship with, is something you can't do in Hal's world. So I love seeing that kind of duality there and that regret. I think that's real. We all have, geez, if I'd gone down this path, I would have been this way. If I'd gone down this path, we have a lot more paths than that. But there's usually some heavy-duty ones where we can look at that fork in the road that we could have taken and what it might have meant. And it's not just in relationships. It's in careers. It's in, all aspects of life. I love how this is played out here because it's so real, it's so natural, and this to me adds a connectability to Hal that I really like seeing this. It's funny with all this focus on Sinestro, I find myself right here connecting with Hal in a very deep, meaningful level on this, and I don't know, I just loved it. I thought it was really, really great.
Oh God, yeah, and it's the Sinestro parts are really cool, and it's one of the things that really kept me coming back for more. I wanted to see Sinestro, what he can do with the ring. I loved how he manipulated it and made a second ring for Hal, and Sinestro knows stuff about the rings that the Guardians don't want the regular Green Lanterns to know. Hal never knew about this. Probably most of the Lanterns never knew about it, but Sinestro is that good that he knows this stuff, and I love seeing that side of him. But again, as you get these cool action moments, you have some great hero stories, and you have some great human stories. You have this great meshing of the three things that really make a fun and an entertaining comic, and also something that keeps you thinking off page. I never was a big Hal Jordan and Carol fan. And it's not, I didn't dislike them. They weren't like the great love story. For me, it was always Superman and Clark. It was always Lois and Clark. That was the great DC love story. Well, seeing this side of Hal gets me, these past couple issues especially, it's getting me more rooting on Hal's side. I want to see him, make things work with her. This is somebody that things could actually work out pretty well with, considering she understands the life. She's a Star Sapphire. She has the power. She knows what's going on. It's not like he has to deal with secret identities and running off in the middle of a dinner to save the universe. But they have their issues. They have their real people, human issues that they have to overcome. And you kind of sit back, and I do root for the guy, but all the while I'm sitting there rooting for him. I know he's got a job to do. He can't just commit everything of his being into this relationship. He has to spread himself out. He has to deal with this other stuff. He has to get a ring back. He has to become a Green Lantern once more. It's part of who he is, but he's also a person in love with Carol. He has to embrace both lifestyles. He has to embrace both facets of his being, and that's something I'm rooting for Hal to understand and come to grips with.
Now, one of the things that I find interesting about this is so you got Hal taking a look back at his life and seeing the choices, that there's some regret with. What should he have told Carol? How could he have made that work? Did he make the right choice, making it all about the job and doing all that? And I mean, you can't help but applaud his responsibility, but also feel sympathetic to what he lost. But then this is where he's connecting with Sinestro. Because you got a guy who became this dominator of his world because he thought it was what was best for his world. But in doing that, the amount of pain he caused, the lack of respect from his people, in his methods and the way that he approached it, and actually being put face to face with those people, the ones that were his closest advisors, and seeing what his core, the Sinestro core, that he put as protectors of his world. He thought he was, again, he made edicts and had them control a certain way. But these are these fearmongers, that he put there. And what happens when he's off the game? He's not in charge of them. He has vanished from them being under his watchful eye. With all the turmoil with Mogul and all that stuff, and these factions that were coming up with Sinestro, some probably siding with Mogul, and then some becoming free agents, that would certainly affect the people that were protecting his world. And look what's happened in the wake of all that. That's the kind of stuff that I just find fascinating. And Sinestro has to sit there. They say it was insincere, but it wasn't. That Sinestro really had... For Sinestro to apologize is amazing. I've started to really love the development of Sinestro throughout this whole thing, but in particular, post-Sinestro Corps and all that stuff with his daughter, the stuff we saw with her and Kyle, and now this has really stepped it up a notch. And I love the way in this buddy cop book that we're getting with these two, we see reasons why Hal and Sinestro in this transition period of the life of both, because they've been thrust into these situations that they can't control and having to look at where does our life path go from here? Because it can't go where we had it going. Sinestro can't go in the direction he was going in before. This is a new path. He has no choice right now. Hal is in that same situation. I love that these guys are starting to connect over that, and we can actually, as readers, emotionally see why. This story, at first, I thought, wow, it's all about Sinestro. When are we going to get Hal? Because I'm the Hal guy. I want Hal. It's here in these moments that I'm like, wow, it really isn't about Sinestro. It's about Hal and Sinestro and what's going on with both of these two in these transition periods and what it means for both. And it's very character-driven with the two. I love that. I really, this story has really started to captivate me because of that. And it's that relationship that I don't know, I really am digging.
Oh, God, yeah. I actually want to see more. You know, I want Hal back. I do want Hal as the Green Lantern. I want Hal as the Green Lantern in the Green Lantern title. But I don't want to lose Sinestro stories. I wish we could get another title with the Sinestro Corps, or even a solo title just called Sinestro. You know, because there's so much behind this guy and so much to him that I would like to see them explore that. You know, assuming he's going to get his yellow ring back, assuming everything's going to go back to the way it was before, and and what would be quote unquote right in the universe. I still want to see more Sinestro stories. I still want to follow him once he gets back his yellow ring again.
What if he doesn't?
A wonderful. What?
What if he doesn't?
Then I want to follow him as a Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a character that he is fascinating in who he is, what we've seen, and what he could become. You know, so the process that he's in right now, just the stuff you mentioned before, where he actually sincerely apologized, and not only sincerely apologized, he actually felt sorry. He actually felt bad for what had happened. For him to come to terms with that and be able to actually voice that out and actually be vocal about it is huge. And I thought that was just a powerful moment.
Yeah, now these decharging cells that they're talking about in there. Was the whole purpose of that room to somehow convince Hal to try to use his powers? Like, because if it's the charging cell, is the idea to get him to use the ring so then it will eventually wear out? Or is it draining it just by him being in there?
I think it's doing a combination of both. I think it's the cells themselves absorb the green energy, so he can't use the green energy to get out. But if he had just sat there without doing anything, it would have drained his ring down anyways.
Okay. So it's a little bit of A and B.
Yeah.
I loved the visuals in that sequence. I really loved the constructs and seeing Hal just try different things to rebel against it. But that moment where he sits there, okay, all right, don't want to waste any more. Stop, think. You've got enough juice for one last construct. What's it going to be? If you can make one last thing, see one last thing before the light goes out, it's that, wow, Carol, I'm sorry. The things that he probably wanted to say to her, and let her know in many ways his sincerity. And the question is, would she believe his sincerity? Think about those panels in the beginning. That's got to be something running through his mind. Would she believe my apology? So this is a guy who's in this mode, and he's about to see Sinestro apologizing for his mistakes. How can these two not connect over stuff like this? You know what I mean? What a great build. The pacing in this issue, phenomenal. It's not the action. It's not just the action stuff, I should say. I love the action visuals, don't get me wrong. But these human moments here just really, they get you at the heartstrings. I love that. I love being pulled through a roller coaster of kick-butt action, great constructs, this sense of this, powerful enemy in the Sinestro Corps, how they've, really kind of stepped up their game. I don't know that I don't know if I'm convinced that Sinestro is going to gain back his ring. And if he does, I would not want to be any of these Sinestro Corps members who are torturing him, whether they were handpicked by him or not.
Yeah, Professor Insed, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
This is, and I did like the fact that he commented on how he's never heard Sinestro cry out in pain before. And that would be something that Sinestro wouldn't let them see, wouldn't let them hear, wouldn't let them know. And they're seeing this. And again, even more just reaction for them saying, wow, we got him to scream. And he immediately kind of, justifies it, saying, well, it must be the green ring that's weakened him. It must have been poisoned by it. Just because this is Sinestro, but once he gets free, man, I think this dude's on top of the list for some payback.
Now, they put Sinestro in a cell where he's going to have to use the ring, expecting the people, to overtake him? Was that the idea there?
Yeah, probably expecting them to attack, make him attack them, make him do, it'll be a great way to burn on the ring, even if he's just throwing up shields, just throwing up shields around himself to protect himself from the people attacking. Either way, it's getting him to use the ring again.
Now, did they do this to the people specifically to use it against Sinestro?
Oh, no, this was just they're torturing the people. This is probably a regular holding cell as well for them, for whatever freaky games or freaky fun they want to do with the people, where there's probably just randomly pick people and do various things, nasty things to them. And you figure
You're missing my point. I guess what I'm saying is this stuff didn't start until after Sinestro was out of the picture.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. The torture and stuff like that. Because she makes the comment, today your Sinestro Corps slaughters our people for their pleasure. This is their world now. Those moments, I'm like sitting there, wait, this is something that when Sinestro was in charge probably wasn't happening, at least as long as he was keeping a watchful eye. As soon as he got pulled elsewhere, and this could be when he started traveling with Hal even, maybe I'll make that argument. Although I don't know, because when he was in charge of the Corps, his Corps, that wouldn't have happened. I think this is when his Corps went into turmoil that this happened, or when Sinestro finally lost the ring. It has to be one of those moments when they knew that he was no longer their leader, that this had to have started happening, because his protection was no longer there for Korugar. Is that how you're reading that? I guess I'm
exactly.
just kind of...
Yeah, exactly. It's the world completely changed over once Sinestro was no longer in power. And they went to doing what they do. They're agents of fear. They get the ring. They're handpicked because they have the ability to cause great fear. These are all nasty, nasty people. So they're now on this planet. They have a solid foothold. So they're going to stay there. They're not going to go. You need a base of operation. And, let's have some fun with the people. You think about it. These cells are mainlined directly to the central battery, to the yellow central battery. So the people being in there, being afraid, probably helps generate energy for the battery. It probably takes not only their green energy that Hal and Sinestro are spitting out, but it also takes the fear from the people.
I got to be honest. As a Batman guy, I've my respect level for what they're doing with the Batman titles right now at DC is through the roof. The quality level of the Green Lantern books, once again, these are top tier titles in DC. Green Lantern is easily, the fourth member of the Trinity, which I know that's been said before many, many times. I'm not coining anything. But, I mean, that's not just lip service. When you read books like this and you read New Guardians and then Green Lantern Corps, these are three top-tier titles, month in, month out. You were so right earlier on where you're saying these are books you can rotate as far as, which one's your top title. And that's the type of thing. We had this discussion last episode talking about Batman, that's the same issue that we're having with Batman. And I love the fact that, I'll be honest with you, I don't care which one's my top book or not. I love the fact that each time a new Green Lantern book comes out, I want to read them. I want to see where they're going. And that is something that's just been consistent with these titles. The Red Lantern book I want to throw in there too, because that was one that when that was added on, it's funny how I think because it's a Red Lantern book, it's somehow I put that to the side a little bit out of the top three green books. With that one, I don't like try to say, well, the Red Lantern book can kind of up the game on the Green Lantern titles. I think because it is such a different exploration, but that is another easily top tier title in this Green universe. I guess I kind of put that where I put terrific books like Batgirl and Nightwing, which I think are just two, home run books in the side end of, and Batwoman. It's Red Lanterns, I think, is in that category of just really top notch characters that have spun out of Green Lantern. I don't know. That's kind of where my place is for that. But I love that Green Lantern is so cool like this. Because I always liked him as a kid, from Super Friends and stuff like that. And then Justice League, when I was reading Justice League with him in it, it was a character that I always enjoyed. But to be able to read him now and get that same satisfaction that I get from reading a Batman title, I think is all the more impressive because I was already a Batman guy. To take me and make me feel like this guy is just as important to me and this universe. It's why, like on the Justice League, when the Key and Batman, have these arguments they have, I feel just as much like I want to defend Hal as I do Bruce. It's cool. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. Do you feel that this is a Hal that would have the exact same arguments with Bruce now? I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to be like. because, Hal's a little younger in this now, but yet I do feel like this Hal has matured from the Hal that we're seeing in Justice League. Do you still feel that?
Oh, big time. You can see it just in how he's approaching everything, where it's not just just in how he looked at, what was the last thing he constructed. It was that, that fading image of Carol. It was that last bit of moment. There is, a serious side to the guy now. There is just, he's grown, he has learned through the adventures and the misadventures, and he's faced the Blackest Night, he's faced the Sinestro Corps, he's faced all these different things that he wasn't when he first, that first Justice League appearance where he was a little bit of the hotshot, a little bit of the, hey, look at me. Now he is a solid team player. Now he is a veteran. There's so many differences between the two. I'm looking forward to seeing this Hal Jordan and Batman, in the same room and seeing how they interact, and, seeing just, because there's going to be a respect level for each way.
Here's a question. Are we going to see a modern-day Justice League without Hal with this going on?
Highly possible. They could very easily take have the Justice League occur before all of this happens while Hal doesn't have his ring. Take the Justice League right on after all the events of Brightest Day, right after all the Blackest Night stuff, and just throwing, boom, this is the Justice League we have. I'm kind of curious. I'm wondering. In a way, I want to see it, but I don't. I kind of like to see the team that we have right now in the Justice League, but matured, and the present day versions of them. So everybody that's there, have them together again.
This is the Justice League's going on right now, though. I guess what I'm saying is, in this universe, there is a Justice League right now. I mean, it's not the one that we're reading right now, but we've seen appearances by the Justice League. We've seen them in Dark Knight, including most recently a Wonder Woman appearance in there, as well as the Flash. So they're going on. So my question is, what I actually would like to see, the geeky part of me, if this Sinestro thing is still going on, I'd like to see their reaction to Hal not having the ring and Sinestro having it. How do they feel about it in this world right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd kind of like to see that. I'm not saying that, I want that to be permanent or anything like that. But I don't know, I kind of get into those reactions. Grant Morrison did a really good job with that when he had his JLA run, where he would reflect, like, remember Superman Red and Blue and stuff like that? That stuff played into the Justice League, and different characters taking over different roles played into his Justice League. I think that became that was the flagship title for the DC Universe, and he was reflecting all those things, and yet still telling his stories, which I think that's pivotal. Justice League has to be about the stories that are going on in the Justice League. It can't be derailed by the universe. It can fold some of those things in as appropriate, for that title, but it's got to have its own tales. And I think that's something we're going to clearly see out of the current Justice League book. I don't know. It could be by the time the Justice League hits modern day, we're going to see Hal with a ring back. Or maybe we'll see Hal using the Sinestro ring, the one that he's gotten from Sinestro.
Right.
And what does that mean for him and his power levels?
Well, we know it doesn't last as long as a regular ring.
Will that play into Justice League?
I think what we're going to...
It's the same writer, dude.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough call, because initially I was thinking it would be kind of neat to see them without the Hal, or see them dealing with Hal with a fake ring, just where that goes. But part of me does want to see the current Justice League cast that we have right now going on still in present day, but seeing the relationship between them being different.
Do you see them doing that, though? Because, wouldn't that be like a direct contradiction of what's going on in this book?
Not necessarily a direct conflict.
Because we're seeing so much of the universe reflecting each other right now. So I guess what I'm saying is, why, if this is still going on, why wouldn't you address that on some level? Because the rest of the universe, I guess what I'm saying is the rest of the universe is doing that, I think, so well without derailing the titles. I actually really like the fact that no matter what title you're reading right now, where appropriate, these books are kind of echoing each other. I think they're tightly doing a lot of that. I know we've got some of that coming up in the Bat books with that Court of Owls and stuff like that, but it's things we've seen in a lot of the Supernatural books. We've seen it in various superhero titles. Where appropriate, these books are reflecting each other without having to knock the storyline that the writer's doing out of the way. And I think that's a key. That's a really important key to me. So I don't know. I'm just curious to see what happens with this, because I have a funny feeling this story's still going to be going on when Justice League hits present day. Maybe.
Well, probably, because we only have, one or two more issues left of the Justice League in the past.
I think.
Yeah, so I think we're almost near the end of that story, so there's going to be some rollover, and again, that'll make things... he would never do it, but I would like to see Sinestro on the Justice League. He never would do it, but it would still be kind of interesting, just to see them dealing with this person who they've only known as a villain, saying, no, I'm the Green Lantern representative for this sector.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked Hal's idea about the ring, and that moment, you're really empowering the people of Corrigar, giving them the power and the trust that the people of Corrigar aren't going to do what it looks like they want to do at the end of this.
This whole thing was hysterical for me because you see Hal going, come on, Sinestro, you can do it. Jordan, just shut up. Hal's trying to be that team player, that buddy. Hey, yeah, you can do this, pal. And he's like, just be quiet. I can do this on my own, human. I thought that there was a cool, just kind of a play action between the two of them.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely amazing. And knowing that it was a short period of time, but you're counting on strength in numbers. It doesn't matter that they don't have, the experience. They don't have the use of the rings. Now, here's what's interesting to me. How does it work with willpower in this case? Because we've seen before Green Arrow don one of these rings and how hard it was for him to create constructs. Is it different when Sinestro creates these rings and gives it to these people? Will they have an easier time creating constructs because of the way that they're created?
Possibly, but I think we're going to get more of just raw energy blasts from them. I don't think we're going to see really complex constructions unless it's, maybe some of the main characters, some of the people that actually they gave names to and actually who had a personality, maybe they'll be able to pull something off. But I think we're just going to get raw energy blasts from the everyday people.
Dude, there's a baby with a ring. I want to see constructs. There is. There's a baby with a ring. I want to see me some... and that baby looks like it's got a mean on. Like he's ready to go. I want to see that.
Yeah, they're all ready to throw down. Now, the question is, will they get the... what's going to happen first? Are they going to fire on Sinestro, or is he going to explain to him, hey, you can't attack me. It's a safety feature I had made in my rings.
Oh, I don't know. That'll be interesting, won't it?
Or did maybe Sinestro not put the safety feature in the ring?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he's got to show them that, hey, I'm going to trust that you're going to do the right thing.
Aren't the
you
rings
right now
his
have
constructs?
the power to take me out.
Aren't the rings his constructs? Because he was able to yank Hal's away, wasn't he?
Yeah, but one time when Hal first went to attack, he was able to say, no, thank you.
So wouldn't this be because it's his construct? Like, you can't... It's still his construct. No matter what happens, you can't unmake it your construct. So I'm very curious to see what this is going to look like. I love that you got a couple of kids running around with rings, though. I want to see what that looks like.
Well, it also these may not be constructs per se, but it's a power that that no one knew existed. There could be different rules, that fall into place with these things, because it's not just a simple construct like, making a big gun or making a big bat and hitting something. This is a level beyond the constructs. It's actually making another physical entity. Now, there's no ring to back it. There's no recharging this one. It's only Sinestro can probably recharge it. So there's limitations that way. But, who knows? I would think it would be kind of a neat thing if Sinestro actually gave them the abilities that he didn't give to Hal. And because when they said it's, you have a lot of, they didn't take his apologies sincere. That would be a great way to show how sincere he is, that if he makes their rings powerful enough to actually do damage to him. Now, it may not be the smartest move because they may say, okay, and hit him. But I think that would be something that would kind of go a long ways.
A gamble to building trust?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I really enjoyed that. I thought this issue in particular was really neat. I feel more and more each week, and this is something just outside of the Green Lantern books. I am really having trouble deciding what books to read first.
Yeah,
and I love that when my comic box comes, and this is where I think the New 52 has been very successful for me. has been that there's a lot of titles where there's stories just because of the way that they're building and, you know, that they're all in different places. I'm liking the different pacing styles of the books. You know, I love the you know, like the Green Lantern, the ones we just talked about right here. 3 different Green Lantern books, 3 different writers, 3 different pacing styles. And it really shows, and I think they feel like they're part of the same universe, but yet, you know, they've got a uniqueness and a unique flavor. It's all the compliments we gave Batman books last week, I feel, are very present here in the Green Lantern titles. And I think that's really terrific. And it's something moving forward. They really need to keep that in place, because when you're really vying for shelf space and you're going to put out multiple titles from the same family, there really has to be a reason to say, I want more of this. You know, and there's that uniqueness is what brings it about. You know, this is how you do spin-offs. It's really great. Jim, this next book is one I've been dying to talk about. We actually put it on the slate a couple of times, and we just ran out of time every time we put it on there. It was one of those situations where we said, we're going to talk about 5 books, and Resurrection Man was always one of them. It's Resurrection Man number 4. The writers are Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. Art by Fernando Dagno. It's Dagnino, and I know I butchered that. Colors by Santi Arcas. Letters Rob Lay. Cover Ivan Rice. Joe Prado. Rod Rice. Editors Eddie Berganza, Rex Ogle. Resurrection Man created by Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning, and Butch Geis. I actually want to, first of all, apologize for any name butchery, but it's funny how, mentioning who it's created by, I don't know, like 4 issues in, I guess I'm usually really good about paying attention to who created characters and stuff like that. I didn't pay attention to the fact that they created Resurrection Man. My history with Resurrection Man is, I read 1 issue of Resurrection Man years ago, and I think it was a part of some crossover or something like that, and forgive me for not being able to tell you what issue it was. I really liked it. But it was 1 issue. It wasn't, I got into like a taste of the concept behind Resurrection Man. I thought it was well written. My budget, it was one of those things where I read it. I knew my budget wouldn't handle it. So there was really I walked into it knowing I wasn't going to be able to keep the book. So I got it. I was thrilled with it, really liked it, just never went any further with it. But that's really been the extent of my exposure. Through following the 4 issues of this series, it's always one that I wanted to read. I'm like, Resurrection Man, I love the idea of this guy dying, and every time he comes back to life, he's got a new power set that he's got to explore, and that changes his whole world. But I also love that it changes like the mission that he's going on and stuff like that. It was really just a really cool, neat concept. So reading this book has been a pure joy for me. This is another one that first of all, I liked it right out of the starting gate, but it's gotten better issue after issue as we've seen the expanding story behind the whole thing. And that like these angels are coming to get Resurrection Man because he's lived far beyond his time. And this would be like kind of but I love that it's not just the angels coming to get him, it's the other side coming to get him as well. And then on Earth, there would be agencies who would become aware of this guy that he may or may not have been associated with. The amnesia aspect of this series is great for someone like me who's read an issue of it but doesn't have a strong familiarity with it. I feel like I'm on the ground floor with the character because he knows as much as I do. But yet I love that there's an accessibility point with it being the original writers for people who read their run before. They can be like, okay, all that happened. He doesn't remember it. That's cool. I think it's just a really cool way to handle it. I wouldn't want every book to do it this way, but for this book with what this guy goes through, it just seemed to fit. What has been your take on this book, though? I found it a pure joy. Are you in the same boat with me on this one, or are you in a different place?
I'm in a different place than you, but I'm not in a bad place. It's weird because with this book, my only knowledge of Resurrection Man was from the Supergirl issue where it was that whole cancer issue, and she kind of sought him out because she wanted him to die a couple times and get a power that could help the kid, and just her whole process that she was going through. So that was my only exposure to this character. So this is one of those titles that when they announced it coming out, I was like, really? Do we need this character? This was one of those titles that I was like, why do I need this? Give me something, give me a Robin book, or give me, and all these different characters that really? I know that I was losing. Give me a Secret Six instead of Resurrection Man. And it was just all these different things that I would have wanted over Resurrection Man because I really didn't know who the character was. And going into this was always on the bottom of the stack just because, I go to the ones that I know. I go to the ones that we're covering for the show. I go to, what I'm comfortable with. So I always was, usually a later in the evening read or, after a couple days is when I was getting to the different titles. And every time I read a book, I am enjoying it. I like the character. I think, yeah, this is a neat story, and there's definitely possibilities, for some coolness when you start dealing with heaven and hell, angels and demons and whatnot. But he's still a character that I don't have this passion for. I don't have this fire for. I've never thought any of these issues were bad. I never thought they were, whether either story or appearance. I think they're both it's a well-crafted story. It looks cool, so it's an enjoyment for me, but there is no connection. There is no passion towards the guy yet.
See, I'm in a place where I'm really passionate about the character now. I'm into him. And I only read one issue before, so I'm not going to say that I was like this big Resurrection fan, because I wasn't. I don't know the character. I was in the same place as you as far as my knowledge of the character. Before we go into talking about this book, though, I want to touch on something you were bringing up here. When you approach comics in general, and there's a newer title that you're picking up with a newer concept, do you find that you naturally put that at the bottom of the stack because you're not familiar with the concept? I mean, because the way you were saying that was, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm actually curious to your reading style. Do you always go to the ones that you're more comfortable with, that you're familiar with the characters, and then the ones where you're not as familiar, do they go to the lower end just because you're not as familiar with them? That's not a knock. It's really, I'm not setting you up for anything. I'm just very curious to how you approach that, because I found that to be an interesting comment.
Yeah, typically I will look at it that way. Now, if somebody gives me, some hype or some reason or some comment, like if you're sitting there saying, oh, you got to read this, then I'll jump to it. Or prime example, Demon Knights. When I first heard Demon Knights, I was like, yeah, that's kind of neat. I'm into that stuff, but it was never, in my head was going to be one of my first pulls. And then I heard Cornell start talking about it. I heard them, when I went to New York, they were talking about it. When I, just the different panels. Well, not New York, San Diego, when they're talking San Diego about the book. And I really started saying, wow, this book is going to be kind of cool. I'm kind of curious about this. And it was those moments that got me into it and raised it up the stack. So like with Resurrection Man, they said Resurrection Man. That's all I heard about it. I really didn't hear a lot of, ooh, rah, you got to read this. So it was, kind of down there. If I'm not familiar, comfortable, passionate towards it, I go to something that I am. Something that I'm like, ooh, I got to wait to see. I want to see what happens here. Like Batgirl, I jumped on that one, when that came out. That was the first read because I had to see what happened. Same thing with the Superman, with the Justice League. These were things that I gotta read these things because I was so curious to see where it was going to go, what was going to happen. Resurrection Man was just a character, it was just a story.
Now, for me, I was a little bit different on that. I found that every week what was happening with me, there was 2 or 3 favorites that I went to first. Where there were characters like you mentioned with Batgirl. Great example. Batgirl was first read the week that it came out. Batgirl #1. I wanted to know too. I was with you. And it was really, I knew that it was going to be satisfying, Gail Simone writing it and all that. I just knew that I was going to be at home there. So that was the first read that week. But, I kept going through, and there was, another couple titles that I picked that week. And then I found myself, and it wasn't every one of the newer titles that I hadn't read before, but ones where there was a concept that I was familiar with, where I'd heard of it before. Like Resurrection Man. This is a great example. I hadn't really read it, but I knew the concept because of solicits, and then, I heard some buzz, on the internet about, wow, there's this cool concept of this guy resurrecting, and it was kind of like this cult favorite. Didn't hear a whole lot of hype about it, but it was enough to get me interested and piqued. I wish I'd known it was the creative team that originally wrote it, because I actually find that and this will tell you how much of a dunce I am. I just discovered that, last night I did a reread of this issue because I'm like, okay, I want to get fresh again for the show because I've read this issue now 4 times. So this actually makes me feel more like a dunce. I just now realized last night that they were the creative team of the original series. I mean, minus Butch Geist, obviously. But they also created Body Doubles, which I didn't know. Body Doubles did appear in the original Resurrection Man series. Same thing with the director that appears in this issue. They were in the original series. Body Doubles had their own miniseries. Now, that I knew. I didn't read it, but we've also seen Body Doubles before. Do you remember seeing them?
No.
Secret Six. The whole Get Out of Hell free card sequence. They were in that.
Really?
Yeah. So this isn't the first time we've seen Body Doubles.
I do not remember them.
Yeah, they were in there.
Wow.
So, that's these are characters that now I think they've been revamped slightly for this because I looked up, when I was doing some research on this, I looked back on the internet to see, okay, who created body doubles? Because that's what I really wanted to get to the root of, what is the relationship of these characters. I also, the old man who's in this, which we'll talk more about, I wanted to see if he had any background. I didn't see anything on him. But the director that's in this has been in the previous series. Body Doubles was in the previous series, and they did launch a miniseries. So,
cool.
So these are characters that did exist in the previous universe that have obviously been more modernized and revamped for today. This was a series that I anticipated, and this was on the week that it came out. I'll be honest with you, the first issue, I don't remember where I read it, what number I read it in, but I know it was in my short stack of like the first 5 books that I read. I read, a couple of my favorites first, and I've been doing that with the New 52. It's usually been 2 or 3 favorites, and then a new title that, like, when I was reading the solicits or the blurb, I got interested in. It was something that I hadn't tried before. Demon Knights made it in the short stack. This made it in the short stack. There were certain titles. Justice League Dark made it in the short stack. There were certain titles that when I was reading, Animal Man was another one that did. But it wasn't all of them. And there were certain titles, like Grifter was a great example of one, that it took me, as I mentioned when we did it, like 4 issues before, I really got into Grifter. And it was along the way that I think issue 3 was really where Grifter started to maybe click for me. And, by 4, I was really selling on that one. But Grifter was lower on the stack initially and then worked its way up because of just the satisfaction of the story. But this was one right from the get-go. But I will say this is a book, I don't know if you feel the same way I do with this. As the story has progressed, it's become much more entertaining. I know you said you're not really connecting with Mitch yet on a heavy level. I am at this point. But I don't think it's just Mitch that's making me connect with this book. I love the body doubles. I honestly, these issues with the body doubles have been incredible. I find them hysterical. And I love that they've got a reason to be a little off their rocker, but yet they can back it up with skill. I would love to know more about them. Like, I'm anxious because of this book to read more. I'm anxious to read the Body Doubles mini. That's what really, I wasn't checking for show purposes when I was checking to see the background of these characters. I was checking because I'm like, I'm really starting to get very interested in reading the previous Resurrection Man mini and the Body Doubles, which it probably does show that you and I are in a different place because I don't think you're in that wheelhouse. I am. I want to read more. I want to see more of this. So to the point where I went to see what I was missing right on the front page that these guys created the series. But I like this book a lot.
And it's funny, since you've mentioned that these characters were around before, that the director was around before, it is making me curious about them. And to the point where if you ever pick that up, I would borrow that from you to read and see what's going on. I don't think I'm at that passionate level where I'll say, oh, okay, let me go out and buy these. But if you had them, I'd borrow them from you.
Now, what's interesting to me, they want him dead or alive. And I love how they're using Twitter and stuff like that to contact each other and stuff, modern technology and all that, because these are characters now, these agents, this should be modern day, and this really is about, fast, sleek, quick communication, being on the know, knowing information before everybody else does. There's money involved in this one. Also, you got a guy who can resurrect with different powers every time. They want to know why, and can this be duplicated? And the application of that, being able to have people resurrect with a certain power set, then keep them protected with that power set. What could that mean power-wise for an agency, an organization, to be able to have operatives that you could resurrect as, whatever power source that you would need at the time? The endless applications there is staggering. It would shift the balance of power easily.
Oh, big time. Big time. And it's, again, it's part of the thing that does make the story interesting and fascinating, that they are taking into effect. They are introducing these concepts, and these are part of the whole story, because that's actually naturally where the mind would go. Especially, we've talked about how the new DC universe is trying to make it more modern, make it more how it is currently today. This is a guy that a government agency would level a town just to get their hands on.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that I like the fact they make the comments about how it's easier to transport you when you're dead, than it is when you have your powers, and he's going to come back anyway. So hey, you put a bullet in him, then you cuff him, then you restrain him before he's actually activated.
See, this is a book for me that I really am enjoying because it adds a lot of flavor to my reading schedule. It's different. It's very unique to other books that I'm reading. You know, they have this character I like that, you know, like he kind of doesn't know what we know. I like that there's a history there to explore. And what's it going to be? What's he going to feel like when he discovers who he really is? Is he going to like that guy? Like, because I don't know what he was like before. I remember when I saw him in the Supergirl issue 2, and the issue that I read with him in his own book was so long ago that, you know, I don't really have this deep-rooted connection with it. I would have had a longer one if I'd approached that series knowing that I could possibly continue on with it. I probably would have approached it with a very different mindset. But I will say this, when I approach a comic usually knowing that I can't continue because I like following a story, that does kind of, it doesn't jade my experience because I'm not in that place. I'll enjoy it, I'll read the issue, but I don't I find that I don't start thinking off the page as much because I'm never going to be able to have the satisfaction of following that path, that train, you know, enjoying that ride. So this is one that it's making me want to go back and pick up the issues and see what came before what I read previously and what came after, because I don't remember what I read previously. But this, I really find this very gripping with all these powers coming after him. I like that the new DC is not afraid to tackle, like, religious issues and things like that. You know, I like the way they kind of do it with a bit of ambiguity, you know, where, I mean, these are angels, but for what particular religion it doesn't matter. You know, I like that. You know, you can kind of connect with it in your own way if you, or not connect with it at all, you know, on that religious level. And I kind of like that. They can just be characters if you want them to be. But I think that stuff's kind of fun. The transhuman stuff I really liked because I didn't see that swerve coming. You saw this old man who hung out with his father. And, you know, I love that he went to this guy because, okay, the only evidence I've got in my past is that my dad was in this place. So let me try to seek out Dad. Can't find Dad? Let me try to find clues with his friend. So the friend's trying to fill him in with some information. But the friend, this guy, this transhuman, is looking at the son, you know, Mitch, as his last-ditch hope because he's got this secret. And the motivation as to far as why he would defend this guy, he went to the dad. He became friends with the dad, hoping the dad could help him with his problem. With the fact that he's this 19-year-old who looks like, you know, the latter part of your middle-aged adult. Yeah. You know, this is taking his life force away. He can't stop what's happening to him. His thirst for power, his becoming a supervillain, in many ways, you know, this has put him in a position where he's appreciating life more, regretting the path that he took, and hoping and pleading that Mitch can somehow save him. I love that the motivation is multi-layered for him at this point, because he comes off as being just a friend of Dad who's doing this because he's trying to help Sonny Boy here. I thought this was this old man trying to step up for, you know, his buddy's kid, when really Mitch is older than this guy.
I tell you, with me, when I saw this guy and the armor and the transhuman and everything that was going on with him, my initial reaction was a little bit thrown because I'm like, okay, if this guy is so old, if he's been around for a while, but the superheroes haven't been around that long, he shouldn't be this old guy unless he, you know. And then I was trying to figure out where, you know, and why this old guy would have this armor if there wasn't this long past in the DC universe. And then they explain it to us very easy and very nicely within the story how he's not some old guy. He hasn't been around for a long time. No. He is this 19-year-old super genius who decided, hey, I'm going to become a supervillain, and oops, something went wrong. I really like that swerve with this character, and I was glad to see how he played out, you know, throughout the end, you know, where Mitch is like, hey, I'm going, but we're taking him too. I needed to see that kind of, you know, just that story, that little attention to detail, that little bit, you know, because I was asking myself, why does this old man have this armor if the universe is only 5 years old? Well, guess what? Boom, there's your explanation. It makes sense, and it's part of the story. I was like, that's kind of neat.
Now, Carmen and Bonnie, when Carmen's going toe-to-toe with him,
yeah,
I love this kind of one-upmanship on the kit. You know, their power source, their, you know, cyborg, post-human nature, whatever it is, between the two of them. These are people that have given up parts of their humanity. It's interesting about that because I could not. I love superpowers. I love, you know, the whole superhero thing. That's one thing I can say for myself. I would not want to. We talked about this with Thunder Agents. I would not want to give up a part of my life, a part of my humanity or anything for superpowers. As much as as a kid, I ran around with a towel pretending to be a superhero. I always wanted the superpowers when it wasn't an After Effect.
Yeah.
And it was, that was always something that, I want to say Shazam and fly around as Captain Marvel and stuff like that, but then go back to being Billy Batson.
Yeah.
I always wanted that aspect of the whole thing. And in this case, you really see these people that have given up so much and it having an effect emotionally on them. I really love that. When you see these two fighting, you really get to see that they have issues. And, they're not talking things out, not trying to, he punches her.
Through a couple buildings, yeah.
But, the part where Bonnie's watching and Carmen's head basically gets demolished there. And you've got to wait for that to reform before anything can go further. I loved the way that was handled. First of all, I loved artistically the way it was handled. There's only so gory you need to get with that. Having that done in the shadows in the background where you see the blood splatter and all that was good enough. You didn't need that to be enough. You could have gone up close with that and really done the whole gruesome thing. Completely unnecessary. Let our mind handle that. You know what I mean? I like that kind of stuff. It did just enough. I thought it was balanced because I thought the foreground reaction of Bonnie was really important there because she would know what that was like or also have to connect with that and go, what if you did that to me? I like that. There was something about that. I really connected deeply with this because of that kind of thing. But I love that she's sitting there saying, okay, while this guy's distracted, I've got this guy knocked out. At this point, everything's gone off the radar. These are things that we had a certain plan in place there, and it's just not anymore. So I've got to go to the director and say, hey, this is not what we had planned. I don't know. That was something that I really liked when I had to go back for new orders.
Yeah. Well, and it was a neat thing about them. When I first, when they were first introduced, I was thinking, okay, just TNA. That's what this is. And then again, as the issues are playing out, as we're seeing more of them, there is an actual processing behind them. They're not just these, hot-looking women to distract the male comic readers, and then hey, look at that, yay! There's actually some of substance to these characters, and they're beyond just they're not idiots, they're not bimbos, they are operatives. There's training, there is procedural, there is just this code of conduct that they have. Yeah, they go a little bit to the extreme. Yeah, they're goofing around, having a little bit of fun in it. But in the end, it is a mission. They do have a job to do, and there is a professional level to them. And I was glad to see that play out through these past couple issues.
Well, and the bimbo look and the bimbo presentation of them makes sense because your average agent on the other side of whatever mission that they're in would underestimate them, wouldn't see them coming. So I found myself through this whole thing, I'm like, wow, I'm really becoming a fan of the body doubles. Not for the guy reasons you mentioned. I love that it was the bimbo twist where it wasn't, oh my gosh, it's another bimbo thing and all that stuff. It's what I liked about Power Girl. When that Power Girl series would reflect on the fact that, Power Girl could use that type of stuff as a distraction and that she would acknowledge it. These girls acknowledge that in there. The way that they dress, the way that they act and they carry themselves, how it would be useful on missions. I like that because that would play off of everything you just said. It's a satire, and it would work in real life. So it was something that I really enjoyed about this as well. I've become a fan of the body doubles, which is kind of such a weird thing. I loved when Mitch recovered here. She gave him too much time.
Yeah.
And it gave him a chance to recover. And, he's starting to learn more about his sonic scream and how he can utilize that.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's, once again, you see this interaction between the two of them. The big joke is always when two superheroes find each other, the first thing they do is fight. Well, with these two, it initially opens up with a fight, but even she explains later why they did that. One, that's what Mitch taught them to do. That's the best way to take them down. You go in with guns a-blazing, especially with a guy like this who you technically can't really kill. And it was a beautiful play out because she's sitting there talking to them, and he's like, hey, she's like, why are you pretending you don't know us? And then you finally see that moment when it sinks in. She's like, oh, my God, he actually doesn't know us. And she completely changes her tactics right then and there. It's like, it's not about the fight. He's not resisting us. He's just flat out resisting. Let's give him a different reason so he knows not to fight us. So he knows that he can trust us. And complete changing in how we're operative. I still don't know if she's actually going to be the right thing for him, but I completely understand why he's letting his guard down, why he's going with them. It makes sense for where he's at and where they are coming from. He needs answers. These are potential answers for him. And, normally I would say don't trust the enemy. Don't trust somebody who just tried to kill you. But in this case, I'm kind of agreeing with him, saying, you know what? You got the right choice here. This is the right call for you to do.
See, I think the trust issue is completely out of it. I don't think anybody trusts anybody here. What it is for the body doubles, it's a path of least resistance. Guy doesn't know who he is because, remember, dude, they were hunting him thinking his memory was in place, which means there's not a Here's one thing that I feel that we do know from this story, and I could be off on this one because I don't know from the previous series, but when he has his memory, they believe there's a reason that they would have to hunt him down to bring him in because they didn't know he didn't have a memory. So there's not a positive relationship between them. He may have had some part in their training or, been an operative they worked with or things like that in the past. We know that from her dialogue. But at some point in time, that diverted.
See, I don't know. I actually think because the one conversation she has, like, believe me, Shelley, coming in guns a-blazing is something you've taught us to do. If you come with me, there will be no more violence. And even from then on, she's calling him sir. She has that, when he asks, what's your name? Bonnie Hoffman, sir. There is kind of a trust. There is something. She was going into it thinking he was resisting her, that he was directly resisting them. And he wasn't going to come in without a fight. They're like, okay, if he's not coming in without a fight, we got to fight him.
I guess. I see, there's that part of me that's like, they came in guns a-blazing without trying to talk to him first. If you've got a relationship from the past, there would be some kind of a connection there. I think she was looking at an opportunity to manipulate here. I'm not entirely convinced that she's not manipulating him here.
It could very easily be. And if that's what the manipulation she's going with, I'm going to say she's selling it really well because
Agreed.
I'm kind of buying the story.
I'm buying the story. I'm saying it's not the whole story. And that's the best stories, Jim, are the ones that have truth in them, but it's not the whole truth. My point is, I'm saying everything she said is true. And at some point in time, it went wrong. So I'm agreeing with you that there's truth in what she's saying, 110%. And I could be wrong. Here's the great thing. You could be 100% correct. So I'll say that right now. But I love that I feel there's a layer of, I agree with you. Everything she's saying is truthful. She's just not telling the whole truth. She's telling the information that will convince him to come peacefully because she knows enough about him that he can get the answers he's looking for. It also means that we're in a situation where it looked like, hey, he had me with that scream thing, and we probably weren't going to be able to take him with us, and we'd have to continue hunting him. If you're doing that, the path of least resistance is, if we get him now, we get paid. We also get the pat on the back for completing the mission of bringing this guy in alive. It makes us look good. It makes sense from an agent standpoint to do that. So, I mean, especially after, think about what she saw with Carmen. They've got this wild card with this transhuman. They've got the wild card of Mitch's current powers. If he dies again, what kind of new powers is he going to have? Because look what they've already had to deal with power-wise with him. Everything she's doing makes perfect sense as far as, let me tell him what I need to say. And I agree with you, it's the truth. So your whole selling it point, we're completely in agreement on that. The only part where we divert off, I think there's more to it than what she's saying. And I could be dead wrong on that, admittedly. That's one of the things I love about this conversation. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm thinking differently. There's a huge distinction between saying that you're out and out wrong and say, I'm just saying my head's in a completely different place. And that's what I'm enjoying about this book. It's that you saying that. I loved you saying that. I loved that I was sitting there saying, he's right. There could be a possibility of what he's saying there, but this is really where I'm at right now. And I'm really digging that kind of depth to this story. I'm into this book big time, if it isn't clear. And it really is something that I was glad and satisfied that this was something I got out of this, because this is one of the new 52 launch titles I was anticipating, because I love the whole, dead character coming back with new powers concept. I did like that in Supergirl when that appeared there. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that's really a cool concept. I would love to know more about him. And that was Supergirl was really the issue that got me kind of interested in the character again. I was reading. I know I kind of surf the internet a little bit more with this kind of stuff than you do. I did see a lot of people talking about Resurrection Man, and there was a lot more buzz. I got a lot more buzz to it than you did. So it was a title before launch I was anticipating, where you, as you shared earlier on, were in a place where you're like, I don't know, do we really need this kind of thing? And that will affect the way that you approach a title. Excited. And I remember the body double, seeing them previously in Secret Six and stuff like that. So these are characters that I was really anticipating. And I'm glad that they paid off that way. The director had no idea who this dude was. I loved when I read that he was a character previously in the series. Look at him with what's going on with him. I'm not going to say anything about him because I've already read some things about him as I was doing some research. And I think I'm going to keep my mouth shut on what I do know about him, just because I don't want to ruin that experience for you.
Cool.
But there's more to his story that makes this kind of exciting. So it's a book that really is growing on me. The Transhuman, I think, is a great new character that they introduced. At least I think he's new, because I tried looking for him to see, is this character got a past history? Because when I found out they created, Resurrection Man, I figured, let me check on body doubles now. I looked for Transhuman. I haven't seen anything with him. I saw another comic miniseries called Transhuman, but had nothing to do with this. So I don't know. This kid, 19 years old. How old do you think he is now in dog years or whatever he is? Whatever's going on with him in I was stupid years.
I would say he's probably at least 45 to maybe as high as 50.
Yeah.
And to go from 19 to that's you messed up there, buddy. Guess you weren't as smart as you thought.
I love that he's scared that he looks a little older than us now. It's a little creepy, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with you, buddy. You're fine. You have plenty of years left.
Because I'm a few weeks away from 41, and you're hitting it this summer, and it's not so bad.
Let's make him older then. We're going to say he's in his 60s. That's a distance away. We'll make him more of my brother Bill's age.
All right.
He's 60. That'll get a response from Bill. 60.
Now, this thing was surreal. I really enjoyed that sequence of events. I like that this kind of religious component with the whole thing. If you think that there is some form of higher power, whatever religion you are, or something like that, a character like him that keeps coming back from the dead would be an affront to whatever that power is. That's why when I read comics, I don't know if you feel like this need to overly connect it with a particular religion. I don't. I kind of like the idea of just the exploration of, we all, like anybody that follows a religion, you have this belief in a higher power, and that there's, that higher power and whatever, the stories that go along with it and things like that. And I'm not being, disrespecting anybody's beliefs here when I'm saying that. I like that this has a connection to anybody who has those kind of beliefs, where you can look at that and go, yeah, would be a little upset. But then if you believe there's another side of the coin, they'd be coming after him too. I don't know. That was something that I really thought was cool that stood out of this whole thing, because it added another twist, another power vying for him. And how do the body doubles? Because they don't back off on this whole thing. You know what I mean? They still want him. They aren't backing down. The two of them have their guns out. They're standing ready, looking to see, okay, how can we take advantage of this? What is our I love the two of them are at ready in that one shot of the two of them standing there, watching the situation, seeing how it plays out. When can we leap in and hopefully get our target again? Bring him in to accomplish our mission. That shows some seasoned agents. You know what I mean? Because that's what's going on in front of them right now is pretty darn kooky. And that would throw off just about anybody. But they're not. They know what they've got to do, and in their situation, I don't know, I thought that was really kind of neat. I loved Mitch's reaction, too, where there comes a point in time where you become tired of being a pawn and being on the run from everybody. You want control of your life, especially in the case of a guy who's got amnesia. He hasn't felt in control of his life since issue 1. Everything's happened to him, and his powers have kind of guided him to situations that really haven't been in his control. It's been kind of, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to do. So he hasn't really had a lot of self-direction other than his exploration of trying to figure out who he is. So that would come to a head. There would come a point of frustration, especially after everything he's dealt with in the last couple issues. I love how that played out here.
Oh, definitely. And, it's something you mentioned earlier, kind of like struck a chord in my head, and I remembered when you're talking about just the religious angle and the higher power, and this is an angel, but they're not flat out saying this is a Christian angel, this is a Roman Catholic. They're not getting that specific. I remembered there was a panel that I want to say New York is where it was, but it may have been Chicago. I'm not sure. They're all blending together now. But they were talking about Greek mythology, the comparisons of Greek mythology to the present day comic book universe, and the fact that they're pulling in the Greek heroes into the stories, and comparing people like the Hulk is a very symbiotic relations like with Hercules of Greek mythology, and both get in trouble because of rage and yada yada. And there was this whole conversation and discussion about the similarities and pulling from them and inspirations. And one of the questions, comments that was raised was the fact that the Greek mythology, the Greek, the Roman mythology, all that at their time was their religion. Yeah. But we feel comfortable making them characters in comics because, one, there's no one around who's going to get angry at you. There's no one going to be around saying, hey, you're disrespecting my faith. Well, when you have modern day religions, you have to deal with that. There is a level of caution you have to have, and you have to keep it general because there are people out there who, the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, there's all these different religions, and this is very personal to them, and they don't want someone coming in and taking our beliefs and taking our, what we hold sacred and making them just your flat-out entertainment. So when I see stuff like this in the comic where they do keep it very general, but there is a level of angels, there is a level of understanding, I appreciate it even more because they're going that extra effort. They are keeping it general, but they're not making it so bland and boring that you can't follow it and you don't enjoy it. There's a nice balance that they can go through, and it could very easily be too much one way or too much the other way. And this angel that they have here is really cool in that I look at her and I'm thinking, okay, kind of an archangel type of mindset where she's the retriever, she's the warrior, she's the messenger. And even when he hits her with the scream, she throws out the seraphim. That's like the cry of the seraphim, not as powerful as a cry as from the seraphim. Again, another level of the angel hierarchy. So they're throwing out details, but they're not locking this in place. And I kind of I can respect that and enjoy a book more when they have that.
Here's the question. What if they weren't as vague? Does that type of stuff... See, for me, I can separate a story from my own personal religion. There's been a lot of stories and different things, shows and movies and things like that over the years that have been quote unquote interpretations done by people being creative and doing their own little take on things. I've seen them. I've enjoyed them for what they are. None of them have changed my religious beliefs. None of them have offended me because I look at them as what they are. They're stories. They're interpretations. They don't have to be mine. I'm strong enough in my own convictions and my own beliefs, and I do feel that that's the case, that I don't get offended by somebody else doing their own little take on it. And I can appreciate and enjoy what they're doing without sitting there and going, oh my gosh, this is so offensive or anything like that, because I feel like I know me, I know who I am, I know what I believe. Let me clarify this. I don't think there's anything wrong with people that do get offended. If you do, you get offended, and that's part of choice. You choose not to view those things. You choose not to read those things. But I'm not a believer in that those things shouldn't be published and that people shouldn't have freedom of expression. You know what I mean? It's kind of I'm in that kind of place with it. I don't check out all of those things because of controversy, but sometimes I get into controversy, and I like checking things out because of the controversy and the uproar and all that. I've never found myself changed, though, by reading something quote unquote controversial because it's touched on something religious. But I don't. How do you feel about that? Do you get into that place? And like I said, I'm not trying to say that I feel people are wrong for feeling that way. I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own anger there. If you get that way, I just don't feel that way. I've never had that experience. I tend to be pretty open-minded to that kind of stuff. But where are you? I'm curious.
I'm not a yes or no answer on this. On this whole topic and this subject, there is a kind of a grayness. I can recognize a story, and I can appreciate a story, and I can appreciate the creative control. For example, Preacher. If I were to give that book to, say, my mom and have her read it, she would be deeply offended by Preacher, just because that's the way Mom looks at it. I look at it and say, this is a wonderful story. I really enjoy it. I really am into Preacher, really loved where it was going. I liked everything that I've read so far with it. I'm not through the full thing yet, but as it comes out, I get it and I read it. Now, there was another series that wasn't DC called Battle Pope, and I don't know if you ever read it. I read one issue of it, and I'm not going to read another issue just because I don't want to say it offended me, but I really hated the way they had written Jesus in it. And I was just like, this is just so beyond wrong. I can't read another issue of this. And I've never read, actually, I didn't even get through the first full issue. It's probably the only comic I've ever read from the beginning to end. And just the way he was portrayed in it, I was like, I can't, continue this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say it is evil, it must be burned. No, I recognize, hey, and if you enjoyed it, hey, that's cool.
I did.
If you enjoyed it, that's cool, man. It's just, for me, that was a no. And so it's, if they were to take, and it's how they're presented and where, what plays out, and it's nothing I can say yes or no right off the bat. It's, I got to read it, I got to see it and see how I feel about it when it lays out and when it plays out. So,
and I went to Catholic school for 9 years, and I loved Battle Pope. So now, let me explain. Battle Pope is not a Bible; it's a story. It's something created, and it is satire, and it's all. So I read that as that. I walked in when you see a cover and a title that says Battle Pope on it. I'm not expecting that book to be reverent. Yeah. And wait. Let me clarify something here too. Nothing I'm saying right now is disputing you or your opinion. I actually thought the way you presented that was spot on and perfect, especially your mention of your mom with Preacher and that type of thing. I think you got to know when you hand stories to somebody that, like, why would you hand somebody that if you know they would get offended by it? You know what I mean? If you know somebody that well, that to me is just disrespect. It's also, you're not doing the book in question. Like, Preacher is on my short list of all-time favorite series. I love and adore Preacher. But I wouldn't give Preacher to my mom either. And if they did Preacher as a television show, I wouldn't say, hey, Mom, you should watch this. There's a lot of my friends who never read Preacher that I would tell they should watch that because they would appreciate it for what it is. But and really enjoy, the story that is presented there. But you got to know your audience when you're handing titles. And I certainly wouldn't hand my mom Battle Pope. But I liked it. I really enjoyed Battle Pope. I found it fun. I don't put Battle Pope in the category of Preacher. They're two very different style books. Like, I think Preacher is, like, incredibly a deep and for as irreverent as Preacher is, there's a lot more depth and character development and things like that to Preacher. Battle Pope to me was kind of good, irreverent fun. It's just really bizarre, and this is really an interesting tangent to have gone on from this. But I think anytime we're seeing a lot more, it's funny in the new DCU. There's a lot more religious characters, religious tones popping up, and I think a lot of it is due to these supernatural books coming into play, where you're dealing with magic, demons, and devils, and other worlds, otherworldly characters. Like anytime Etrigan, for example, comes in there, you're dealing with hell. So once you're bringing in a concept of heaven and hell, you start going to religious places. You can't help it. And Demon Knights with a lot of these crusades and things that are in there, you're going to be dealing with any magic. Magic is really where the line starts to be crossed a little bit with religious tones. And I don't know, I like that stuff because it's fun in stories. These are stories, and that's kind of where I'm at with them. It's fun. I don't know. It's a fun little topic, and there is no yes or no, right or wrong on that. Like you said, there's a whole bunch of, you're either here, you're either there, or there's a gray area in the middle where you have a line. And you were sharing one of your lines. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't think it's a right and wrong thing. I think it's fun and interesting to discuss. I don't like to be afraid to discuss those things. I think they're fun.
You can't be afraid to discuss the stuff, and it's even, in college we had this communications class where you actually had to break into small groups and get to know people, and it was kind of a weird sort of learning small talk type of mindset. And as the group started getting to go, you get the initial, just the basic boring stuff about you, and then by the end of the semester, these small groups, we started getting into these serious topics of religion and faith, of morals, what is right, what is wrong. And these were just conversations that were spun from previous conversations we've had in the past. There was no directive by the teacher. We met on our own time. We had to take notes on what we talked about, do a presentation, discuss what we went through. And it was a weird experience because it's forced small talk, but over time, that forced small talk became something serious and real. And it's, religion's always that thing for me that when I start talking religion, I'm open-minded towards other people's belief and faith, and just who you are is who you are, and I'm cool with that. But I am, in a ways, protective of some of my beliefs. So there's always kind of a butting heads, where a conflict, within me, where if someone's saying, contradicting me, my first reaction is to defend it, but then I got to look and say, wait, hold on. What they're not insulting me. They're just saying their beliefs, their faith. And it's, it can get interesting.
Oh, easily. With this whole bit with the angel, her being part of that agency of, kind of taking down affronts. I liked Mitchell. He's hitting her with everything he's got. He's having very little battle damage from all that. Actually, and arguably, it could be only cosmetic battle damage, because she seems to be walking around looking just fine. I'm not seeing any after effects on her other than annoyance. And he keeps telling him to stop. With that annoyance, she kind of wiped him out. And you see her standing there when she's in full battle gear, standing there with the wings and everything like that. She looks completely unharmed. So he did nothing to her. Here's my question, and the reason why I'm even bringing that up. Is this who Mitchell Shelley really is? When he's standing there at the moment, I think we learned a lot about. I think sometimes when people are in these death-defying situations like that, where you're facing an opponent, you don't seem to be doing anything, but you keep coming at them. He goes, "What was that? Geez, that hurts. Still tingling. Got to be careful. She's playing for keeps." But he doesn't give up. He doesn't surrender. Are we learning something about him in that moment and who he is? Because I really liked that sequence. Him stepping up. I think when you find people in that life or death, no matter what they do in normal day-to-day situations in a comic, when you see him in that heroic moment, this is something like Booster Gold. We talk a lot about him. You see this kind of stepping up from Booster Gold. When it comes the back against the wall, the joking stops, and you see Booster Gold step up. You know what I mean? It's where my love for Booster Gold came in. This issue is a great example of what I'm really starting to like about Mitchell Shelley. That sequence right there where, he's kind of, I love to call him Mitchell. He's been Mitch this entire thing. Now all of a sudden, I'm on a more formal basis with him. But I'm really digging this guy, because you see that moment where he does that one last burst, and, she wipes him out accidentally. Well, I mean, we know he's coming back.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see.
He's got to come back. Come on, the book's named after him. It'd be a really tough, issue 5 if he doesn't come back.
Well, it's life before your eyes. We've seen him go to this other place. I'm guessing that's what we're going to see him at next issue. That other place he went to previously. I don't know. This book is really just. I can't wait to see where this is going to go. But I love the ending shot there. Oops. Turns out there is such a thing as too much extreme prejudice. I think I just killed the unkillable. That's going to mean a ton of paperwork. But we've seen him in this spot before with the body doubles.
Yeah.
It took him a while to come back. So I'm anxious to see where this is going to go. I'm glued to this. I'm really into this title. This is one of those that's really risen up to be in my shorter stack. I will say consistently since this series has come out, and there's no right or wrong here. I know we're in a different place because we talked about it earlier, but just my reading experience has been this one wound up being on the week that I read it in the top 5 just because I was interested. So I ended up reading, a couple of my favorites and then went to this, and it stayed in that spot, which that's a testament to the title, that with all the quality books that are being published right now, the week that this book comes out, it's not my first read because I've got a ton of, a number of favorites right now, but it always winds up being in the first 5 on the week that it came out. because I'm into the title. So that I think that's kind of for people listening to this. I like to, when I'm able to qualify, because I'm not always able to. A lot of these books are just great. But this is one I can really qualify that this is wound up in that spot. I'm into Resurrection Man, and I think, for people, I'm hoping for people that were fans of it previously, that they're finding this as satisfying as I am as a new reader. I'd actually be curious if anybody out there is like a Resurrection Man fan, and you've been reading this previously. What's it like to have this series back? Are you finding a connection with this series the way that you did previously? I don't know, because it's kind of cool. I never read it before, other than I don't consider what I did before really reading it.
Yeah.
It's not the same place that somebody else is in, but I would be hard-pressed to drop this series right now. If I had to financially, this is one I'd miss because I'm in that spot with it.
Hawkman.
And our next review will be Suicide Squad number 4. The writer, well, hold on. Before I get into the creative team, let me just throw out an apology up front, because I know there's a couple names in here I will butcher, and I really mean no disrespect by it, especially because I really enjoy this title, so hopefully no one will be insulted by my butchering. The writer is Adam Glass. The artist is Federico Dallocchio. Colorist is Val Staples. Letterer, Jared K. Fletcher. Cover artist is Ken Lashley. Assistant editor is Sean Makowitz. And editor is Pat McCallum.
Maybe we should change the podcast title to We're Sorry. We could just get it out right at the beginning. Hey, welcome to another episode of We're Sorry.
And especially because the artist is the person I knew, whose name I knew I was going to be completely butchered, because I am really, really loving the look of Suicide Squad. When they initially announced Suicide Squad and that there wasn't going to be a Secret Six, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll still get that kind of Secret Six story in this, especially because Deadshot and Shark was going to be here. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it'll be. But when I jumped right from get-go on this, just the artwork, just the story we were getting, everything, I was just like, okay, this is cool. I'm really digging this. This is one of those kind of, the art style is a little bit different than the other stuff I'm reading, but it's not like some crazy, out in left field art style. It's a really cool, nice, great details, but a little bit gritty. It's a little bit hard for me to describe, but the one thing that I always thought with this is this fits the book. This fits these characters. It fits a villain's story, and I really just love where this is going.
I'm going to give compliments to this creative team because I'm starting to really enjoy this book. It having Deadshot on it and King Shark has, to a certain extent, because I loved Secret Six so much, I can't help but saying to myself, but I want them on the 6. And I've been in that place since issue 1. I will say now by issue 4, I'm digging this book. So I like Suicide Squad. I love the concept, and it's one of those things where I've been working to get past my issue. It's not that this book is good. I mean, they're doing a really good job. I agree with you on the visuals. The writing on it's good. I'm into the book. It's that part of me that's saying, where's my 6? And it is like seeing Deadshot in this role where I want him with Catman. These are things I'm like, oh. And it's funny. You've heard me on these episodes talking about, the new DC, how I'm loving all the titles. This isn't a book I drop. I don't mean it that way. But it's funny how every issue when I'm reading it, I'm still in that place where I'm like, but 6. Because this was one where it really was, my Secret Six was my favorite book. It was Birds of Prey and Secret Six duking it out. This is the one where I'm like, I lost my book. These are characters that should be in my book.
Yeah.
And I don't have this issue as much with Birds. I do, but not to the same extent, especially now in Birds that we've got Batgirl in Birds. I'm starting to see some things that, are connecting with me in Birds again, in there. So Birds is in kind of with the whole espionage team and all that. Because I think my Deadshot's in a very different place with them in this. Now, let me clarify this. I really liked this issue. I liked Deadshot's role in it. I liked the swerves in this issue.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this disclaimer I'm putting on there about the whole thing as far as where my head's been at and all that. I love the Suicide Squad concept. Having that come back is a great idea and all that. There's that greedy part of me that's like, but we can have this and still have Secret Six that's really driving a lot of where I'm at right now. So I don't want this book gone. I want the sixth.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of place I'm in. And so when we talk about this, you're going to see me enjoying this book. I will say it's been funny. Where I've been reading this book has been hurt, I think, because of that part of me that's having trouble letting go of Secret Six. You know what I mean? I'm like a rabid dog holding onto that book still. And it's like been how many months? You know, and it really is. It's kind of... It's almost like I got a trait of Secret Six in my teeth when I read this. Now, I want to talk about this title because I really liked this issue. So I'm saying all that. So this is a very torn fan, appreciating what the creative team's doing, but then I've got that other part of me that's really over there, and so it's fun. And so none of that is a knock on this creative team. It's more of my love for this going off of enjoying the book because it's a quality book that's being presented here. So it's A and B going on here.
And I am also, it's funny because, though I'm really loving this, I do still have those moments where I wish it was Secret Six. And I think in the future how they could turn this into Secret Six and how slowly they could bring the team in there and they could bring back the Six together and, maybe have this be the relaunch of Six. And just, I am thinking all that and have those thoughts going through my head as well. So it's not like, oh, well, Six is no more around. I do wish Six was around, and I do think they could have the Secret Six title running alongside this and have, bring it in. That could actually be the freedom of Deadshot could be the Six could get him out of the Suicide Squad. And there's so many different things I'm thinking they could actually do, and it'd be kind of neat to see them pull this in or pull Catman in and have him make an appearance and save, Deadshot in a moment. And just, I still am wishing that Six is still around. So we're both in that same, we both have those same emotional ties that to the Secret Six. But this is a title that I was kind of glad that they didn't, at first when I first read the opening issue, I was a little bit sad that they didn't make, the reason, Deadshot was on the Suicide Squad was because he killed the female Dr. Light. They made it something completely different. They didn't continue on the story from where Secret Six was. So initially I was like, I wish they had done that. That would have been kind of a neat connection and tie-in and saying those issues actually occurred. But as the story's going on, as they're at this different place, I'm kind of glad they didn't do that just because it's going to allow for those stories maybe to be told later on. Maybe a future story arc in Six will be an introduction of Scandal Savage. Maybe we'll get to see those characters come back and play, and it'll be a whole new rebirth of what is the Secret Six. So it's a love. It's a torn relationship I do still have, but I am just kind of sinking wholly into this book right now, trying to just keep going through.
Harley's look's grown on me. That was something in the beginning I had kind of an issue with, too. I think because, Deadshot and Harley had very different looks, and then Deadshot seemed to be drastically different to me, but then this issue was the one where I'm kind of like, okay, the games begin. This issue was a pivotal one for me because it really kind of started to, with what the swerve with Captain Boomerang and everything, really important issue for me being in that place I was in to kind of make me go, wow, okay, all right, I'm digging what they're, the direction that they're going in. So I can still feel that and still be in this place, which is fun. Harley's outfit, did you like that immediately, or is that something that you needed to grow on you?
No, I actually liked that immediately. Okay. I was okay with it because she was, she still was Harley, but she was doing her own thing, so she had a different look to her. I never thought that this is how she looked when she ran with the Joker. It's probably now she just, changes her look around a little bit because she's not with Mr. J anymore, but she still has her style. She still has her flair that she likes. So that's how I kind of took her look to it. And this issue, again, was one of those great Harley issues for me just because the ending. And that was something I was like, and even throughout this, like the opening page where they're looking down on the soldiers, and Harley just does the joke where she's like getting ready to spit down on them. That, for me, was a nice little Harley moment. And then as later on, when the Joker's mentioned, you see her kind of drift a little bit, and Deadshot's like, hey, Harley, focus. He's like, yeah, focused. you can still see there's still that connection. There's still that, control that the Joker has over her. I like seeing these moments of Harley in this. And in previous stuff, we saw the funny craziness of Harley where she's sitting on a counter eating ice cream right out of the tub because she wants a little ice cream while bullets are flying around, while everyone's trying to kill each other. She's just sitting there enjoying her ice cream. There's these funny Harley moments, and then you get to see the sinister side of her. You get to see the crazy side of her.
Well, see that in the sequence you're talking about with the focus one. The eyes. Yeah. Consider me very focused right now. That was a very dangerous moment.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, the oi enough with the soap opera stuff, if that hadn't happened there, that had the potential to get very ugly.
Yeah.
And I one of the things I do like about this book, there's been a number of situations that have crept up in this book where when you're dealing with villains, this was something that I thought the Six did very well. When you're dealing with villains, you have these moments where things can go really bad fast. And these are people who aren't afraid to cross the lines. And whether you call it a friendship or not, whatever you people have, association, whatever you call that, when you've got people who aren't afraid to cross the lines, as friends, you get into arguments. You get into fights. You and I have known each other for years, but we've butted heads over things. The difference is, because of the fact that we're not villains, those lines, no matter how deep our argument, some of them have been on the show, no matter how crazy or kooky some of those discussions or arguments go, there's a line. We have a stopping point. These people don't.
Yeah. No, that one time, we were both reaching for guns. So, we almost went over the line. We came close.
We didn't have guns. That's what these people do. They don't care if there's concealed carry or not. That's one of the things. It's funny. And let me clarify something with Harley's outfit. I really do like it now. I'm not entirely convinced this wasn't how she was dressed when she was with Mr. J, because this is a different world. I'm becoming very comfortable with the idea that this is not the same world. That the past history of this world, even though some of the stories that we know and love happened in this world, this is not the same world. So historically, people might not have dressed the same. Things happened earlier for these people. So this Harley Quinn isn't as old, hasn't gone through as many stories as our Harley Quinn has. So this may very well have been her outfit, or she may have had a totally different outfit, that we've never seen before. I don't know. Or it could have been the same traditional Harley Quinn outfit that we had previously. Who knows? Whatever the situation was with her, I like the look. And as the universe, I think it's why a lot of these titles 4 months in, are like Suicide Squad, are starting to grab me more. I think I'm starting to become a lot more comfortable. New world. Stories happen, sure, but it's not the same world. When that divergent path happened with Flashpoint, it changed the past and the future. This isn't the same place. It's a different Earth. New Earth. New 52 Earth. New 52 Earth. Whatever you want to call it. This is not our world that we knew before. This is a brand new place. I think it's why in my mind I'm comfortable with the idea, not that they have to do this, nor do I care if they don't do it. The idea that it is possible that our world could have still been continuing somewhere else. I don't think that's the case. I don't, I'm not saying that. But I wouldn't, if they all of a sudden came up with a story where they said, yeah, and our old world is continuing on over here, and these characters that we're following now on the main Earth could visit them. I wouldn't have an issue with that concept if they did it. I don't think they're going to go that route. I really don't. I know I mentioned it last episode when we were talking about that JSA thing, but it's funny when I look at Harley Quinn and characters like that, I don't necessarily think, like Deadshot, I don't think he was on the Six, this Deadshot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that stuff happened to this guy. And I'm comfortable with that. I don't have a problem with that. Like you said, it means that they could happen again. There could be a Six book, or it means that, the Six could be on another 52. If those stories could have happened somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping we get the Six back, because I'm with you. I think that book could easily co-run with this, because it's very different than this type of thing. But I like this Amanda Waller run task force, that there's a reason these guys have got these explosive collars in here. I loved the swerve with Captain Boomerang. Captain Boomerang was on the Suicide Squad it's natural for, I mean, when I thought, I'm like, okay, they're putting Boomerang on, they're making him the leader of the team. The thing, I'll be honest with you, one of the things I didn't like about that is I felt like that was diminishing Deadshot. I don't know if you had that vibe with it, but I'm like, oh, really? Deadshot was finally kind of taking this leadership role, and I was starting to connect with him again in a way that I haven't been in this series. Now they're putting Boomerang in the place, and it's putting him back as second fiddle. I don't know if I like that. That's why this story, the way that it was going with this basilisk thing, where they're infiltrating this place and these people are committing suicide so they can't find out information. I love this stuff. The arguments between him and Deadshot and how he's like basically holding over Deadshot's head. Hey, I got this thing. I can blow you up at any point in time. Not knowing that he was really the piece being delivered.
Yeah.
Now, when do you think Deadshot knew this?
I'm thinking from day one, from moment one, from when he was introduced to the team. I'm betting we're going to find out there's going to be some hidden private comm between him and Waller.
Doesn't this book read very differently knowing what happened in this issue? Because I will say this issue 4 really was another one. I've mentioned some other books previously where like issue 4 was kind of the clicking. And I don't know what it is. It just seems to be these titles are hitting like these kind of reveals in issue 4. This book in particular was one where the reveal here really changed my viewpoint on the series and gave me an appreciation for what they're doing here. I like that they swerved me. Because I didn't see what was happening here coming at all. I had no idea. I thought Boomerang was really taking over. I did not see, and I thought at some point, like, they're going to all connect on some level or, agree to be, on the same side or, however the squad was going to take off. He was going to be kind of like the leader and that was going to kind of go that way. I love the swerve so much more because I didn't see it coming.
Oh, God, no. It's Captain Boomerang, so it's a known villain. It is somebody, who's been around for a while. 2, this is the post-Blackest Night Captain Boomerang who's able to generate the dark energy boomerangs. He's not just throwing boomerangs. So I was really thinking, okay, he's on this team. He's going to be around for a while. I was kind of figuring they were going to do eventually Boomerang would realize that Deadshot should be in charge and it would be one of those uneasy alliances that you get between two villains on the same team. And I was thinking that it's going to go back and forth. There's going to be times when, there's probably going to be a moment when, Boomerang's going to either try a double cross or will maybe think about the double cross. And I was just thinking a constant political intrigue. Had no idea they were going to, dump him off and use him as their exit strategy, which again, that was a great swerve that I didn't see coming. And I love it when I'm completely surprised by a book because you figure all the logic would say Captain Boomerang's going to be around for a while. Guess what? Surprise, he's not. I was thinking Yo-Yo had a bullseye painted on his chest. Yes. I'm like, see ya, dude. You're gone. You're toast. I was thinking he was going to drop it, but no, he's still around. They get rid of Captain Boomerang. I'm like, wow.
I'd be curious to see, who's expendable, because being a Suicide Squad, that is one of the cool things about this team is people are expendable on this, so who knows who's going to stick around, who's not, and what happens there. There's a couple of sequences I really liked this issue, aside from the reveal that we're talking about. This Diablo thing where, she committed suicide. They need information. The motivation level, knowing that your head's going to blow off, is pretty high. Also, the hope that you can really decrease your sentence, another motivation. The burning the toxins from her blood was a neat twist. I don't know a whole lot about Diablo's powers, so I really liked getting to know him here. Yo-Yo, I don't know if Yo-Yo existed before or not. Never knew that character. I agree with you. That I thought that automatically made him have a bullseye. I liked that sequence with Diablo a lot. The page following, when the guy comes in and he's ready to start shooting, that sequence with Deadshot where Harley's in the way, if that lunatic had gotten out of the way and Deadshot had dropped him, he would have never blown up.
Right.
So it was really Harley Quinn not listening at that moment. And to me, that's a strength of the issue because these are the way these characters react. They're not a team. They're working together because they have to, not out of choice. Who's a leader on this team right now is really a gray area. I think Deadshot, we do see him by the end kind of taking more of a leadership role in this, being the fact that he knows. And I question who else knew besides Deadshot about the swerve that was coming. You know what I mean? Like, did Diablo know? I don't know. Harley Quinn? Would you confide in her?
No.
So, I mean, I don't know that Yo-Yo and Diablo were necessarily privy to the same information Deadshot was. You know, maybe they had one guy in the place to know what was going to happen, have him do the swerve, because what are the other three going to do about it? You know, they're just going to let that stuff happen with Captain Boomerang because they got no choice. So just let one guy know. It's got to be Deadshot, and here's why. Because he's the only one who can really handle it. Yo-Yo, for the reasons you mentioned, him being kind of the green guy out of the whole batch, you know, not quite having the same experience. And Diablo almost being too much of a spiritual guy. You know, for whatever Diablo did that got him in prison, he seems more to have like a moral code than...
Yeah, he's definitely not the full-on evil bad guy.
Right.
There's more to him and more to why he's here, and it's one of the things that always keeps me from not ever thinking he's going to die. I think he's got a solid life expectancy.
Yeah.
Deadshot and Harlequin definitely. I think those characters have the strong, lifeline. They're probably going to be around for a little while, but again they could swerve you very easily by changing things around.
Well, the one thing I love about the character cast list, I don't know, I think Harley and Deadshot are pretty safe. I don't know that I believe Diablo, Yo-Yo or King Shark are necessarily safe. Who knows? Because, with this King Shark being so different, who's to say there couldn't be another King Shark? You know what I mean?
There could be a couple King Sharks out there, and who knows what exactly this guy can even survive. And he's a character that when they first introduced the new look, I was like, oh man, I didn't like it. And I wanted the traditional look. I wanted that same King Shark that I had. And then I started seeing that personality in this guy. So I was like, oh, okay. And I do have to admit, as the issues are going on, I am enjoying the look a little bit more. I am enjoying the difference to it. So it is a look that's getting on me, and it's, I'm getting comfortable with, because I'm still seeing the same character. And I do love, like, the one scene where he's kind of like just blanking out because there's so much blood. He's like, so much blood. And it's just, with the shark in him, you kind of, the eyes roll into the back of the head. They get that bloodlust going. They're not thinking straight. They're just reacting. They're just an eating machine when they get the fury going. And I like seeing that being play out. We've seen it earlier with him where he had that really cool scene where he pretended he was kind of like passed out, and the guard goes in too close and he bites the dude's head off. Yeah. It just, you see that, kind of that style, that shark style to him. So he's a character that I do hope survives, because as the issues going on, he's one we're seeing more of. We're seeing a little bit glimpses of other personality in there.
On that page where there was that so much blood sequence, I really loved the team when they were walking away from the fire in that background. Like, it had that kind of Expendables kind of classic action movie kind of appearance. The team of badasses kind of walking away from the sequence. I will say it's funny. I'm completely comfortable with all the new looks. King Shark has grown on me. I'm kind of like, all right, I can get into that look and all that. Harley's look I've gotten into. If only Mr. J could see me now. I love the swagger. I think the artwork in this has really gotten cool. I had trouble with it at first because of the new looks. I don't think it was really... I never questioned as far as the quality of the art. I think it was getting used to the new looks and takes. Now I really like it overall. The one look I'm still having trouble with, and I think it is, again, goes back to Secret Six, and my love for Secret Six is Deadshots. I can't get into it yet. I don't hate it, but I'm not, like, through the roof with it. Whereas, like, the Harley Quinn one, which is funny because my love for Harley Quinn goes all the way back to the Batman animated series, straight on through to her own series. So I've actually got more of a attachment longevity-wise to Harley Quinn. So it's funny that I'm much more comfortable with her variation than I am Deadshot's. But I think it goes to show how much I love Deadshot. Yeah. That I'm sitting there and saying, wow, I've really grown to love the character. Which, if you told me like 10 years ago, I'd be sitting here saying, you're going to eventually read a Suicide Squad comic, and your first comment's going to be, boy, it's the Deadshot look I just can't get into. I'd have been like, what do you mean I'm going to care about Deadshot? I mean, come on, really? I do. I love this guy. So it's funny. I don't hate it. But you mentioned the art in the beginning. I really have grown to like this art style. It was a little different at first. It's a different artist, with a different kind of approach. I really like the look in this book. This basilisk where we haven't really seen the head honcho in this. We see this gray Laura of basilisk and just her kind of, look with the whole mouth and teeth and all that kind of crazy stuff. And how Deadshot's in that power moment where he knows something nobody else does. He knows the murder of one of theirs, and I can show you the one who did it. And Captain Boomerang's like, wait, what? That whole swerve, I was like, oh my God, yeah. Whoa, no pinning this on me. I don't know any. You knew her as Asp, a paid hit. And that he was being delivered. Now, I didn't even know. At this point, you would think I would have naturally realized, okay, the whole thing's been on a swerve on him all along. When he pulled out that thing and was ready to click it, I still thought at this point in time, okay, there's still going to be a swerve. This is all a setup. Captain Boomerang's still with them. It's this is all some kind of way to gain control of the situation or something. I didn't see the bit where he was pressing that and nothing was happening. Did you?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
See, I didn't see that. I thought at this point still, there's still... Because I guess maybe this is where I have a different exposure to Suicide Squad than you. I read, the original Suicide Squad mini and stuff like that. I don't know if it's I shouldn't say that I know it's the original mini, but I remember reading an Ostrander mini with Suicide Squad back when it was before the main series kicked off. I remember really liking it. It was another one where I couldn't afford to go to series with it. This is a character set that he was on the team back at the time. So I thought I'm like, there's no way he's expendable. He's one of their main heavy hitters right now. And I love the way it went. They totally swerved me. Obviously, they got me more than they got you.
Well, I didn't think about it until it started playing out. When he pulled it out and click, I'm like, there's no way they're killing them. I was like, oh my God, this is a swerve. And then even the next panel, he's sitting there, click, 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 click. You got Harley, who's kind of covering her ears up. Shark's got this, look on his face, like, hey, what's going on here? And right there, everything it was beautifully played out. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome.
And that is that is the reveal. I was asking earlier, did you think the other ones know? A good catch there. That panel is the one we know. Deadshot's the only one that knew. Yeah. He's the only one that's standing there confidently. It's a face down between the two of them. The other three have no clue. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was howling at this scene just because, that whole, like, ha, I got you, click, uh-oh.
Now, what's going to happen when Boomerang comes back for revenge?
You think he's coming back?
Oh, I don't think Boomerang's dead. It's Captain Boomerang, dude. He's a Flash villain. He's going to be in the Flash.
I'm thinking this...
Oh, I disagree. I disagree with you immensely. This is Captain Boomerang. We're going to see him in the Flash, and I think we're going to also see him once again in Suicide Squad. I don't think Captain Boomerang's dying. I see him coming back to get revenge on the Suicide Squad. And wait, I'll take it one step further. I don't know that we won't eventually see him on the squad again. You plop something in his head to blow up, he's going to join the team and be a good, not a good little boy. He'll be
going to be a good boy.
A bitter little boy.
He'll be Captain Boomerang.
There's no way Captain Boomerang's gone from this.
See, my initial reaction is that Boomerang's dead. They've got a pretty good, solid motivation for him to die a painful death.
Or to torture him endlessly and he ends up escaping from that.
Yeah, definite possibility there as well.
See, I don't see him dying. I see them thinking dying's too good for him. So I think he's going to have something to escape from.
Yeah, and the fact that Deadshot put a bullet through his hand, maybe that's going to affect his mutant power?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. It's going to be kind of curious to see what's happening with him. Now, is that because of his coming? He still came back from Blackest Night then, right?
Yeah, because he's creating the energy boomerangs.
Right.
He still had a couple physical ones on him on the one panel, on the one shot,
right.
But those big exploding ones, those were the energy ones. So this is the Blackest Night reborn, resurrected Captain Boomerang.
That's cool. Now, when they get back to Belle Reve and we get to see what's going on, I love Diablo. This is wrong. We've earned their trust. Deadshot's the one that's got this all on, he sees the reality of it. And I think that's something that Waller respects. I don't know if respects is the right word. It's one of the reasons why Waller knew that he was the one to bargain with. So, yeah, I guess it is a form of respect. But by the same token, I think she knows he's the one that also has to be watched.
Yeah.
Because, he gets it. He's the smart one. He'll also play ball. if he feels he's going to get something. But I don't, that situation, knowing that they're going to blow up. Obviously Harley Quinn's going to escape. I mean, you just took the bomb out of her head. She's going to escape.
Well, not only did they take the bomb out of her head, they introduced the concept that the Joker may be dead, skinned alive.
Right.
She's got to go to Gotham and find out what happened and find out who did it and deal with them. That's the whole, everything goes into that riot going on at Belle Reve. That was all her who caused it. She's the one who caused it to try to make a cover for her to escape and head back to Gotham and see what happened to the Joker. That's how I completely read that whole situation. But I loved how it played out because you get this initial.
What if she? I'm going to add another possibility of that. What if she doesn't go back to Gotham? And let me explain why. What if she doesn't go back to Gotham and just decides to become her own agent of chaos because she believes the Joker's really dead? What if because she believed the story. Remember when Captain Boomerang said it? She totally believed what he was saying because he believed it. He wasn't lying to her, and she bought into that. Think about what her job is, so she can read people. So in that moment, she was reading him and totally saying, wait a minute, you're not lying about this, are you? So she believes it. She's bought into it. So she did all this. First of all, I agree with you. She caused the whole prison riot as a way to mask her escape. So I agree with you. But when she caused the prison riot, what if it's not to go back to Gotham? What if it's some plan of her own? What if she's now going to go off on her own and kind of do her own thing? The squad's going to have to hunt her down, right? I don't know. It could be Gotham. I agree with you, but I don't know. I don't know that she's got a reason to go back, except for, like you said, well, there's that part where you said, like, to go after who skinned the Joker. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the first thought that popped in my head, and it even popped in my head when you see that scene where he's like, hey, Harley, focus. Yeah, consider me very focused. That look of just evil and anger and rage and just that fire in her eye right there. I was thinking, okay, she's going to find out who did this, and she's going after them. And I didn't know how it was going to play out, but then as soon as I saw that guy disactivate her bomb, I'm like, that's it. She's escaping. And even Waller recognized, what are you doing? Never disarm. You know the protocol. Never turn off those bombs. And I thought that everything played out exactly how, justifying why Waller does what she does, how she does it. You can't give these guys an inch because they will take it and they will make a run for it. If they don't have that little motivator in the back of their head armed, you're not going to get your normal, cooperative participant. You need that extra motivation, especially for people like Harley, for people like Deadshot, I don't know, Shark too. Just these characters, they need that extra motivation to keep them loyal.
Okay, I'm going to go with third possibility here. What happens if she finds out that the Joker isn't dead, but can't find him because, he's going underground, kind of doing his own thing?
Right.
Because there is that other possibility, because he's not dead. I mean, that kind of throws another twist. So that's the third possibility. So then what does that leave her to do? Yeah,
see, I am thinking she's still that Harley that does jump when the who does jump when the Joker snaps. Snaps his fingers and she jumps. No matter whether she says she's independent, whether she says she's on her own, she's really one of those, kind of victims of, just the love gone wrong, if you will. And I can't see Harley standing on her own 2 feet really unless she was forced to. And I don't think with Joker being dead, I think her whole objective after that would be to hunt down the people who did it.
But what if she finds out they didn't kill him? Then that objective's no longer in place. So what does she do then? Because if she's seeking that out, if she gets the information on who, or tries to get the information on who killed the Joker, wouldn't it come to light then that he's still alive? Because you got to take a look. There's a progression of time. What Captain Boomerang knew was before he got associated with Waller, right?
True.
So things have happened since then, which means it would have come to light that the Joker's still alive, right? At least in the underworld circles.
Only if the Joker wants people to know that.
Right.
So I don't know.
I think my point is...
There's multiple options that this could go down.
And I like... What I'm saying is I like that. It wasn't really to dispute you. It was more to throw out there like, hey, okay, you're right. That is an option on the table. But I'm looking at... And I like that. I like that I don't quite know what's going to happen with Harley. I'm a bigger fan of that. I like options. I like possibilities. I like swerves. I like that there's a possibility of a choice D that I have no idea what that is. And yet it makes sense that it seems a little bit more open-ended, considering the situation there. But when the prison riot comes out, I love how this then puts them in a mission where they've got, 18 minutes?
Yep.
And if they don't succeed, and Waller's got no other choice but to say that because we're dead if you're dead.
Yeah.
So there's something really important going on there. So Deadshot Unleashed, The Fury of Diablo, and the most gruesome casualty ever. So does that mean it's a casualty of this team or just, I don't know. I guess casualty in general. I don't know. I'm
wondering if one of their heads is going to pop.
Yeah, I don't know. This series has grown on me. It really has. Even though I've got some of those issues still because I want my Secret Six. But I am in a place where I want my Secret Six and Suicide Squad. I don't necessarily feel that one is mutually exclusive of the other. I feel that they were very different books. I like the crossover with the Six and Suicide Squad when that happened during Blackest Night, because I thought the cool thing about that was it showed us how different those two teams really are. And just because they're two villain groups of sorts, Suicide Squad, the fact that it is run as kind of this covert government operation, it has a different way of operating, a different method. The team operates in different lack of friendship parameters than the Six did. So I don't know. I like the distinction. I don't know. It's something kind of cool. This was another one. Issue 4 really kind of brought me into a place where I'm like, wow, I really like Suicide Squad. This actually has made it to the point where I will read issue 5 in a different place than I did issue 4 because of the quality of issue 4. It has bumped up the stack. It's not going to be one of those where I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm just kind of not in that place with it. This just changed my feelings on this book a great deal. And the previous issues. Because of Deadshot, I really thought that moment with the swerve was something I really needed to feel Deadshot in this. It was cool.
I want to see how they quell this riot. I'm actually excited to see what happens and how they stop it and just what level they have to do to neutralize this and see if Harley makes it out.
I like that I feel a danger for all of them.
Yeah.
Who really knows who can survive out of this? I don't know. So, now, did you take that as our Savant in the first issue?
See, I thought that's how when I first read it that I took it that it was Savant, and I was like, "What? They can't kill off Savant."
I know. What were they doing?
He's a cool villain.
So, did you take that as the same? I guess
I took it as being that was Savant.
I'm choosing to believe it wasn't him.
Okay.
I'm choosing it to be a Savant,
okay,
not our Savant. No, I have honestly, I think I have to kind of agree with you, but I'm still gonna. It's kind of my own defense mechanism. I'm going to believe it's a Savant, and that now the name is open for our Savant to take it back. And to be reintroduced as somebody far more tough than the guy that was in the first issue. I'm like, really? You just did what? No Secret Six and you killed Savant? What? That was like Ryan Choi dying for me.
Ryan Choi's death actually was a cool story.
Yes.
That I have to admit, that was one of the things when I was reading that first issue, I really didn't like that, but I just moved on relatively quickly.
I did too.
It was like, I was like, what? Come on. Keep going. And that was a big pause for me. That was a moment of, so if they had used any other name other than Savant, that would have been, all right. That would have been good.
They better not have used Creo. Been very angry. I think what helped me there to move on quicker was with it not being set in the pre-Flashpoint universe and the fact that the character looks so different. That's why I'm saying there's that part of me that's saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be the Savant that we knew because Creo wasn't there. You know what I mean? So I guess there was that part of me that was like, well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't our guy. And there's an opportunity, if somebody wants to use that character, to bring our Savant back later, have him be that it wasn't that guy. So I don't know. I'm like I said, it is a defense mechanism because that story hasn't been written yet. But I'm choosing to believe that somebody could. Anyway, that's Suicide Squad.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. This month, DCBService.com has that Batman Death by Design Deluxe Edition original hardcover graphic novel, regularly $24.99. 40% off, only $13.74. Be sure to check out dcbservice.com, your comic book pre-order source. Over at InStockTrades.com, once again, they're doing those end-of-the-world sales, 12 months of sales. And Image Comics is having a 45% off sale. Top Shelf is 48% off, on top of their already amazing deals. Plus, you can get that annotated Sandman Volume 1 hardcover at 50% off, only $24.99. So it's a great opportunity to save some money over at InStockTrades.com. Our next episode, Jim and I are getting really close to wrapping up the New 52. So we are going to be chatting a few more of the books that we haven't gotten to. We're looking at about 1 or 2 more episodes, and we should have everything done from the New 52. Then we're going to do kind of our year-end wrap episode, which we're still working on. We're trying to decide how we want to finally wrap up the year-end wrap-up, because we were going to originally do it midway through the month, but with being so close to the end of doing every book from the New 52, we figured let's get that project done, make sure we hit everything in issue number 5, and end off January kind of with a concluding remarks on what that whole experience was like, checking out every single title that DC has published in the last 5 months. Hope you guys are enjoying this, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.